All right, so this is the first of what I'm calling the Rewind series, which is basically like a throwback, right? Or a revisited. Podcast's been around for a while now, and I know there's a lot of new listeners, so I'm going back and kind of cherry picking some episodes from the past to not revamp them, but just get them out there again for people that might not have gone through all 100 and whatever episodes. Because there's some good ones out there, and I just want to bring them back to the forefront, get them in the front of people's minds and consciousness and in the ears again, right? So this first one, well, before I even get into that, so a little bit about this Rewind series. I'm going to just do these, every now and then, right? Just pop an old one in and refire it up. So people that might not have heard it the first time around will get exposed to it and hear it, right? I don't know, just feels like something cool to do. And honestly, just the situation here, I've been firing on all cylinders at 125% the last couple weeks. I had to do some traveling. The shop is picked up because it's been nice. So everybody's remembering they have motorcycles at the same time. Barr's been crazy. The tattoo shop's been crazy. So I've been going bananas, and I got a bunch of podcasts coming up. A lot of people scheduled. A lot of people have agreed to come on. A lot of people in the lineup. So it's going to be awesome. But until then, I got to put something out, right? Get something out there for people. Remember that I'm still here, right? But yeah, and big shout out to everyone at Mama Tried, Scott and JR and everybody. We had a great time out there. Got to see a lot of people I haven't seen in a long time, old industry friends and people in the chopper community that are cool as fuck. So yeah, without further ado, let me just launch into today. It is the I'm looking. I don't even know what day it is, right? It's Thursday. Tomorrow's Friday. Big revelation. It's the 13th. The 13th. St. Patrick's Day is just around the corner, and I'm in Massachusetts, right? So what are things that I associate St. Patrick's Day with? Rowdiness, drinking, good times, having fun, friends, Irish music, maybe a little brawl here or there. Just, that type of thing is what we think. St. Patrick's Day, family, whether it's blood or self-defined. It's all those things, right? So there's also a band from Boston called Dropkick Murphys, you might have heard of them, that embodies a lot of that, right? Like, Irish music, rowdiness, good times, drunkenness, well, not all of them are drunk, but you know what I'm saying? I'm talking about the crowds and the shows and things like that, right? So so the first one I'm going to rewind and bring back to life here, Reanimation. Maybe I call it the Reanimated series. No, just is going to be episode, what number was it? Episode number 37, all right, with Al Barr from the Dropkick Murphys, and who I first met when he was back in the Bruisers, old Boston punk hardcore and oi days. So this originally aired in November of 2020. Damn, dude, I didn't even know the podcast was that old. I thought it was literally like 2 years old. I didn't even know it went that far back. That's how fast time is going by and how fast time is going by. Wild. Absolutely wild. So anyway, so talked to Al about his life and history and music, and got into the whole surgery thing where, he had vocal cord surgery, and there was also a lot going on in 2020 that you might remember, shutdowns, things that rhyme with Maxine and, controversies about that stuff, or that might be even before that, right? But might be pre-Maxine shutdown type of stuff going on there. So I'm sure we talked about that and freedom. This was a wild one because we had actually recorded it at a gun shop in New Hampshire. So once again, shout out to McPherson Firearms for giving us the space to record the show. I used to go more mobile and bring my stuff around before I had it fully all set up. So that was fun. I got some plans for the future to make a more mobile setup again and get a little wild with things. But anyway, so yeah, so we're going to bring this one back, number 37, Al Barr from the Dropkick Murphys and the Bruisers and the old Boston punk and hardcore and oi scene. Yeah, and so that's that. Let me know if this is your first time hearing it. Let me know what you think. I might listen to a little bit here and there just to see if the show's progressed or if I've regressed or whatever. You know what I mean? But yeah, so it's a good one, man. It was a good time. And I look forward to reanimating it, revisiting it, and having it back out there. And yeah, hit me up if there's other ones that you want to see brought back to the front. And not going to do it like every week or every month, but you know, here and there, we just put one out again, get it going again under the Rewind series. Now let's do some business. If you find yourself in the unfortunate situation where you are in a motorcycle accident, you need to get my boy, the Pitbull Glassman, on the job, on the scene, repping you. You give them a call at 617-777-7777. And you have up to 3 years to get something going on that. So if someone rear-ended you 2 years ago at a stoplight or some bullshit like that, you give Glassman a call. They'll rep for you. Even if you got a case going on and your attorney seems a little slack, give them a call at 617-777-7777, anywhere in the country, and they will rep for you. Like I said, they're the bulldogs of this, and it's you know, I know people in there personally that I've known a long time. I know it sounds probably weird, me endorsing some kind of law type of situation, but you know, it's legit. It's literally legit. So I stand behind it. Now, say, changing the pace here, you opened up a tattoo shop, or you opened up a business, or you have a need to spice up your walls, right? Like whatever it is, at your house, your garage, your cubicle, your prison cell, your padded cell, your cubicle cell, whatever it is, right? You want to spice up the walls a little bit, you need to contact Tattoo Flash Collective at www.tattooflashcollective.com, on Instagram and all that stuff at Tattoo Flash Collective. Oh, and on as far as Glassman goes, Glassman Injury Attorneys, on Instagram at Gotta Get Glassman. All right. But yeah, so, right, you need to talk to Johannes and the homies at Tattoo Flash Collective. They have, obviously they have Tattoo Flash, right? But they have artistic prints and any, all kinds of sizes, really any, like huge prints, posters, little postcard size prints, everything in between. So tattooflashcollective.com. If you use the promo code Big Truth at checkout, you get 10% off your order over there. Now, if you are a Patreon subscriber, you get even more off your order, and you have to become a Patreon subscriber to get that code. It's a special code for Patreon subscribers only. How do you become a Patreon subscriber? Super easy. Go to www.patreon.com/bigtruth, and there's all kinds of information there on how you can join up. My Patreon subscribers are the best. That's the cream of the crop of my listenership, the people that put their money where their mouth is and really support the show financially, help us keep the lights on and keep it going, keep it growing. Now, I love all my listeners, right? Well, I respect all my listeners. I might not love you all. I don't know you all. You could listen and not be up to par. No, I'm just kidding. Whatever. I'm just talking shit. It's been a while, and I'm just riffing here. I'm excited to talk to you guys. It's been like I'm like a week behind. I've never been in a situation before. I'm freaking me out here. But no, seriously, patreon.com/bigtruth. That's how you can financially support the show. I know it's been a tough winter. I know it's been a tough year, and I know finances are crazy. So I respect and like super appreciate everyone that's kept going even through these hard times. And I 100% understand if you can't, right? So like, if you can't, at least do this for me, right? If you like the show and if you're a listener, share the show with people. Give it a like. Make sure you subscribe to the show wherever you listen, and give it a review if you can, because that's what boosts us up in the algorithm as well. Like if they see activity there, you're leaving stars or you're leaving a written review. If you leave some funny 5-star reviews on Apple, I will And Spotify too. I think I could check it on Spotify. I don't know. I know all these platforms have different things that you can do. Some you can only leave stars, and some you can write a review. Leave a good review, and I'll read it on here beforehand. And new Patreon subscribers, I will always shout you out on here. And I got some stuff coming down the pipeline where I'm going to do some live stuff or some Patreon only stuff. And so it's going to be fun. But yeah, other than that, most of you know, unless this is like early on for you, like if you just discovered this show, you know I own a motorcycle shop called Chopperhead Custom Cycles, located at 13 County Road in East Freetown, Massachusetts. We're a full brick and mortar motorcycle shop. We also have a web store, so if you live in Argentina or someplace far and you can't get over here, you can order some swag. We got a full line of like Chopperhead, shop apparel, t-shirts, hoodies, all that stuff. But if you come in the store, we got parts. We got a parts counter. We got a showroom. We got an area where we got helmets and riding gear. Some of the helmets and riding gear, all that stuff is online as well. Some parts are online as well. And it's more importantly, it's a full brick and mortar motorcycle shop. So whether you need an oil change or a full custom bike built, we can handle whatever. I'll go on the Chopperhead on Instagram, just at Chopperhead. You can see stuff we got going on. On Instagram, the shop, the podcast, my personal one is just at Big Truth. Give us a follow, see what's happening over there. I don't know. It's BigTruthPodcast.com for more information about the show. And I'm changing the link up for the merch store, so it's going to be more direct. So make sure you check it out. We have a merch fulfillment company that works with us, and so I got a whole line of podcast merch. So make sure you get some stuff and rep this summer, man. Rep at the beach, rep at shows, rep when you ride around that bike, whatever. You know what I mean? But without further ado, let's just get into it right now. Reliving from November 2, 2020. It's November 3rd. Sorry, November 3rd, 2020. My episode with Barr from the Dropkick Murphys and the Bruisers. Keep it locked.
The Big Truth Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, get ready!
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have a liftoff.
Yeah, once again, we got liftoff. I want to thank you for tuning to this episode of the Big Truth Podcast, and I'm stoked to be here in Manchester. Oh, no, we're not in Manchester. We're outside of Manchester.
Brentwood, whatever.
Brentwood. We're at McPherson Firearms, home of the podcast of the Gun Shop guys. We got to just give them a shout out for letting us use their room.
Yeah, Vinny.
Yeah, man. And I'm here with Barr, who you may know from the old New Hampshire days, or if you're from the Dover House area, or if you're from Boston, you might remember the Bruisers, or his second little side project called the Dropkick Murphys.
Yep. You might know them.
You might know them, any one of them. But
Dance band.
Yeah, man. So we just basically had a good podcast before we started this. So
We did a podcast to do a podcast.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, we got all the bugs out.
Absolutely. So what's happening in your corner of the world? I know everything's weird with especially in the entertainment industry with the continued shutdowns and
it's
whatnot.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we're trying to make heads or tails of it right now. I mean, when this thing started, it was like we were in Europe January, February, doing a European run, and we were hearing. I'm a news guy. I got kids. I got a wife. I want to know what's going on. So I'm always paying attention wherever I am in the world to what's going on, and especially when I'm not home, and especially when there's an ocean dividing me from getting home. So I'm always like, I remember years ago we landed in Europe the day they had a volcano. It wasn't like one of these. It was like one of these events where they just sent all this debris in the air, like microscopic stuff. But they canceled every flight. For like the whole entire tour. Well, I'm like, they still haven't opened the airports. We're going to be stuck in Europe. We're stuck in Europe. We're in Dublin, playing a show in Dublin, and literally because we had the flights booked already, we didn't have to rebook anybody who was, you had to rebook, then you had to wait 2 weeks before you even got on a plane. Literally the next day, it all opened up and we flew home. No problem.
Perfect timing.
So we're in Europe. We're hearing stories about, travel to China being cut off. And then there's this they're expecting some sort of a mass global pandemic. You hear these things, you go, well, what is this going to look like? I don't know. We're on tour, so we're working. We were in Italy, and we're actually. It was at. I'm trying to remember what city they shut down first in Italy.
I remember this, but I don't remember what city it was.
In any event, so fast forward. So we're back. We're literally back. Like our last show was London. We played Alexandra Palace in London. First time ever. Amazing play with Coxbara. It was like I didn't even care about playing because we're playing with Coxbara. You know what I mean? Notice I didn't say they played or opened for us or anything like that because that's not what happened. We played alongside one of the great freaking bands in the world. Coxbara, and I sat, and I never because I got to do these warm-ups and stuff before we play, so I'm always on the bus or wherever doing stupid warm-ups. I mean, they're not stupid, they're important, but when you're missing bands you want to watch, it sucks. And so I was like, I did like a half. I was like, it's the last show, I'm only doing half my, usually it's like 2.5 hour warm-up, no joke. And so I did I think I did an hour and 15 minutes, and I got on stage and was like watching them, and one of the guys from Coxbara's, team was on the stage and was just like, Al, Colin wouldn't mind if you go out there, and sing with him. And I'm just like, are you nuts? He's got one of the greatest voices in our music.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
One of the most distinct.
The last thing you want to hear is my freaking voice next to his. No thanks. I'm like, I'm all set with that, and I'm not gonna go out there and it's like nails on a chalkboard. It's like, no, I'm all set right here. Having all the hair on the back of my neck stand up, listen to him do what he does. But
and isn't it awesome? Like after all these years, like no matter what, you still see certain bands, and that still happens.
In 1999, we played Holidays in the Sun, Berlin, and we were playing with Coxbara. They were headlining, of course. We had played already. We were sitting in our room. It was just Matt and I, Ken, and we were 4-piece at the time. Rick Barton and Ken Casey were off somewhere else in the giant building we were in Berlin, and Coxbara were getting ready to play, and everybody's like, it was, they were like, Coxbara's on the way. They got a big entourage. They're walking to the stage. Everybody's kind of like, Matt and I are like, let's just go and get out of the hallway. They're on their way and shit. So we're just sitting in our dressing room, and we look out and they're walking by, and Colin, we hadn't met him yet. And he literally stops and he looks at Dropkick Murphys, they had the little sign on the by the door of the dressing room, and he's like, he walks in, he goes, "You guys are the Murphys," and then we introduce ourselves, drummer, singer, and this is one of these moments where you wish you had a tape recorder, because this is Colin McFowle from Coxbara. He goes, "I got something to say to you lads. Dropkick Murphys saved punk rock. You done saved punk rock. Do you know that?" And I'm like looking at him, and this is the era of Gangs All Here, 10 years of service. This is what I made my bones, Curse of a Fallen Soul. That's what I made my bones at the band with those songs. Those were my songs as much as they are the Dropkick Murphys songs, even though I was not around when they were written, because they were written in the time between Mike leaving and me coming in. But those are the songs that they heard me sing that went, yeah, this is going to work. So to have someone like a Mickey Fitz, a Colin McFowle, someone who you, as an American kid, they were just on your record player, you know what I mean? Or your boombox, whatever. You weren't ever even thinking you're going to meet these people, you know what I mean? And then you meet them, and then they say something like that to you, and you're like, you know what I mean? I could have, and I've said this a few times in my time doing this, I guess you could say professionally, I could have died right then and I would have been fine with it. You know what I mean? Because it was like, He didn't have to say that.
No.
He didn't have to say that.
He stopped and went out of his way to do it.
He stopped and went out of his way to do it. And here's the thing. British bands don't fluff. They don't fluff. They don't want to, they like to get fluff, but they don't want to fluff. You don't see a lot of fluffing going on from British bands. And that's not to put them down at all. They're just very ardent in their own
different culture.
They're into self-fluffing. You know what I mean? And it's you know, that's just something that I've picked up through the years. You don't see a lot of, you don't see it like where you'll watch or you'll read an interview with like a Wisdom in Chains or something like that, and they do shout outs to all these other bands that they love. You don't see that as much with the older set, at least. I don't know about the newer set, but like the older set. And that's not to say that they don't have respect, but you just don't see a lot of that kind of, because this is about our interview and we're promoting our band right now, aren't we? Why would we be talking about your band?
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
It's like, it's just not done, is it?
Yeah. By the way, the hashtag self-fluff is going crazy right now.
Right.
Going through the roof.
Right. Self-fluff. Self-fluffing. Yeah. Self-fluffing. Yeah. You know, I mean, I think everybody's a little familiar with self-fluffing. If you don't, let me recommend it, especially in these COVID times.
But yeah, man, to get that kind of validation though, from especially like, I know what you're saying, man. When you're a kid and you listen to these oi or punk bands from across the pond, and they're not like coming here that often.
No.
And if they do, they might not even come to Massachusetts.
They would go to California. The first few times they came. I remember when they played Boston, they actually borrowed Matt Kelly, our drummer's drum kit. Yeah. And I remember they played, I think it was Karma. Remember Club Karma? I think they played in there, actually. I remember we weren't playing with them. I think Forced Reality actually was one of that. I want to say Murphy's Law and Forced Reality were on that bill.
I believe so, because I remember wanting to go to it, but I was not in town. I was somewhere, and I was like, "Fuck, man! I can't believe I'm missing Coxbar."
Yeah, because it was like the first time they ever played Boston, and it was, I mean, phenomenal, of course.
Yeah, fuck. Yeah.
But no, I remember because Pete had me come up and sing on the beginning of one of the Forced Reality songs, and I remember we weren't touring at the time, and so I didn't have my, as I call them, tour legs, and I remember like I was so, because I love Forced Reality so much. They're my favorite American oi band by far, and that you know, that record with Jocko on the cover, I probably, when I say I listened to that record for 2 years straight, like you can ask my sister and my wife, who were my roommates, they knew that album by default. They were like, you know,
whether they wanted to know
whether they wanted to or not, they knew that record, because, you know, so I just remember being on stage with Pete and I was so excited to do the song, and I remember like gassing like halfway through the little bit that I had to do, because I was just like, fuck, I got too excited.
Yeah. So just before, there was something you talked about, like having a 2.5 hour warm up before a show. So this was like, you know what I mean? This is like professional level musicianship. This isn't like just hammered and running on stage. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and this is, and you know, I mean, everybody has their own thing that they do before they get on stage. Some people don't do anything and they get on stage and they do great. I have to do what I do to do what I do, and what I do isn't. It's not like you're gonna see me and go, "Oh yeah, he was." You know, it's not like my vocal abilities are kind of limited, because I had a brain surgery when I was 19 years old, and unbeknownst to me at the time, when they did the surgery, I didn't know this because it was just a matter of saving my life. When they cut me open with the bone saw to remove this arterial venous malformation that was in my brain, they severed the nerve to one of my vocal cords.
Damn.
So I have one vocal cord, not two. So I never knew that. So, you know, this is 87. So 88, I start the Bruisers. We would practice, and I would have, you know, we'd practice, and then like 5-6 days, I would have no voice. Yeah. And I never thought, oh, I must have some. I always attributed it to the surgery, but I didn't attribute to it like the surgeon who saved my life, who at the time was one of 3 surgeons who could do this particular brain surgery in 1987. This guy Richard Frazier, he told me, your voice is going to take the longest to come back, because you had almost 8 hours of anesthesia shoved down your throat, and it's damaged your vocal box. He didn't even know like that I had lost one of my vocal cords. So fast forward 20 years, I think it was 2007. I'm having like a lot of problems with my voice, just consistently losing it. And I'm not doing anything that it makes any sense why I'm losing my voice, because your vocal cords are like muscles. The more you use them, the stronger they get.
Yeah.
And I couldn't understand what was happening. The manager at the time, Diane Maya, sent me to an ENT in my area in Portsmouth, and it was this Eastern European guy. So he stuck these cameras down my nose into my throat, and he had me actually do vocal warm-ups, like la 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 kind of shit. And so then he rips the tube out of my nose, and he just is like, "Yes, you have a paralyzed vocal cord." I'm like, "Come again?" He goes, "Completely kaput." I said, "Kaput? Like broken? Like doesn't?" He goes, "Here are normal vocal cords," and he shows me. He goes, "If you've ever seen a picture of they look like two rubber bands, and then when you sing, they actually get like linguini, like even like a rubber band, like it's crazy, like you think, and then they look so, they're so, it looks like they could snap easily, so I'm just like, what the hell does that mean? He's like, well, it means you're singing with, he didn't give me a lot of information. Needless to say, we had a second opinion down at Mass General about 4 or 5 days later. I'm in there with this guy, Dr. Tsong, Tsong, this Chinese guy who his whole thing is vocal cords. And he gives me the, confirmation. Yes, you have a paralyzed vocal cord. And then he tells me, he goes, but the one that works is a Popeye's arm. I've never seen anything like it. He goes, I don't even know how you speak, let alone project your voice to sing. And I was like, oh, I just do what I do. I don't even, Yeah. So then my wife finds this guy, Zeitel's in Boston. He is at the top of the food chain when it comes to vocal surgeries. He's done Steven Tyler, James Taylor, Julie Andrews. So I'm starting to think maybe when I go see this guy, maybe he'll look at me and go, I can fix you. I can, you know what I mean? Like I get all these ideas in my head. All right. So I go see this guy. He's in the financial district in Boston. He's got the whole top floor of a skyscraper. This guy is hemorrhaging money. You know what I mean? Yeah. I walk in, he's got one of his underlings setting me up with the ENT, with the Spiegelung is the German word. Basically they're gonna do the same thing that everybody else does: shove a camera down my nose and look at my vocal cords. So picture this: I'm sitting in a chair in front of this giant screen, looking at again the inside of my throat. From behind me, I haven't even seen this guy.
Yeah.
I hear this. What the fuck is that? I shit you not. This is the top of the food chain. Yeah. This is the bedside manner.
There's no fourth opinion.
This is it. And this is the bedside manner this guy's bringing into the room. I hear, what the fuck is that? And I'm just like, because I can't turn, because I've got these things shoved in my nose and my throat. And so I'm kind of trying to turn to see who's saying this. And this guy in a doctor's, uniform, a white shirt, whatever, stands in front of the screen, points, and he goes, and he looks at me like I'm Jason Voorhees without the mask on, no shit, and just goes, are those your vocal cords? Like, he's supposed to know, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I just kind of nod, yeah. And he looks at me, he goes, you're a singer? And I go, and he goes, can you do anything else?
Yeah, fuck that.
If you want to talk about like dying inside, I had that year changed my whole life, and in the sense that I'd quit drinking. I had quit a lot of things that I had been doing too much of.
Already before this?
This is the same year.
Okay.
And so I've decided to do all these things to change my life, and I'm thinking I'm gonna turn these things around. And this guy comes along and basically tells me, not only when I sing does the air supply to my brain get cut off completely, He said, you could die when you're on stage. He literally, when I left this guy's office, Truth, I felt as though I was done.
Yeah.
I literally felt like, this is it. I'm done. I had forgotten everything that self-propelled me to where I was at that point went out the window. And for some reason, I just wholeheartedly sunk into this narrative of, you shouldn't be a singer. You're not a good singer anyways. People don't like your voice. Kenny's a better singer than you. All these things just started coming into my head and fucking with me. And
You just had the top vocal guy.
I just had this guy who
would do that to anybody.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I remember we were playing the Dorchester Electricians Hall, starting our St. Patrick's Day run that time, and Kenny met me outside, and I'm looking at him, and I'm like, bro. And he goes, I heard. And he put his arms around me, gave me a hug. He goes, don't worry. He goes, we will always take care of you. We'll always take care of your family. Because that's what this band has always been about, taking care of each other. We're a family. We love each other. And he wanted to let me know that if this is what's going to happen, and I don't know what it was that made me turn it around, because what happened was I went home from playing that show and I said to myself, and my wife is pregnant with our second child at the time, Harlow. And I'm like, I don't got no I can't do anything else.
Yeah.
This is what I do. And I'm eking out a living right now at it. And now I'm being told, you can't do this anymore. You're going to die and blah, 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 blah. And something inside of me just went, you know what? I fucking had a brain hemorrhage when I was 19 years old. I defied all the odds and lived through it. I relearned how to walk. I got myself another band. I fucking did that band for 10 years and 17 lineup changes, got ourselves to Europe 3 times, made some noise enough so that these guys noticed me. Now I'm doing this. If I die on stage, they're not going to forget me. Yeah. I'm not going to go out like this, like a cowering wimp. I am going to embrace what I've been told and fuck this guy. I ain't Pavarotti. No one's going to a Dropkick Murphy show going, Al didn't hit that note right. You know what I mean? And if they are, fuck you.
Them. Yeah,
exactly. So I just said, you know what? I'm not going for this narrative this guy laid out for me. I'm Al Barr. I do what I do. I'm not the best at anything, but I do what I do, and I do it. I sell it. I'm not like, I'm not going to sit here and say there aren't a million singers better than me that I sit and go, I wish I could do that vocally. But the reason why I think I connect with people when I'm on stage is because I believe what I'm doing, and people see that, and they think that's why it's worked with the Bruisers. That's why they see the conviction in me. They see the conviction in the band. And that's the connection that's so important with any band. And that's what I'll tell anybody that asks me, how do you get a fan base? It's about connections. If you walk out and you're not looking at your audience, if you're looking above them, if you're just doing some performance and then you're walking off stage, maybe somewhere along some song might connect with somebody, but you're not going to have longevity. Yeah. And the reason why I feel like I myself have had longevity in this and continue to, obviously one huge part of it is because I'm in a band with some of the most, in my opinion, some of the most talented people in music, and I feel like, and they let me hang out with them. Let me just follow it with that. And so I, I'm lucky that way. But when I found, when the Dropkicks found me, when I found them, like I remember playing with them for the first time. First of all, let me go back. I know I'm jumping all over the place here, but it's a podcast. Johnny Rio brought the Dropkick Murphys demo cassette into and he was so excited. So you have to understand what's going on. So the Bruisers lost Jeff Morris in late 1996 due to, he came to a point where he was just frustrated with the way things were going with the band and where he was in his own personal life. And
not for nothing, 96 was just weird time
It was
in music.
Exactly.
Especially the music
what we were trying
into.
to do. It just didn't seem to be any seats at the table for it. And so it was a shit or get off the pot moment for Jeff. And he decided that he wanted to do something else. And things were a little awkward with us for a little while, but thankfully we were able to kind of, sail through those times and get beyond that shit and realize that our friendship and brotherhood transcended all that stuff, and egos be damned. But the point in bringing that up is it was actually Sean O'Hearn, who's sitting to the left of me here right now, who actually called me when he found out that Jeff had left the band. And I had fired Richie at the same time because, Richie was going through a hard time in his life, and he and I had an argument. And so I was very infamous, if you will, among the people that knew me for kind of just doing things, and so if you found yourself in a situation with me back then, I apologize because my temper used to get the best of me.
We were all younger and more.
Well, I'll tell you this right now. The fact that I wasn't stabbed to death by somebody is a miracle. You know what I mean? Because there's absolutely no reason why I should be here sometimes when I think about how crazy I acted and was at times. But anyways, it was Sean actually who called me up from Portland, Oregon, and said, I heard that Jeff left the band. And I heard that Richie's not in the band anymore. He's like, Johnny Rio, remember him? And I go, yeah, he's out here with me. He is perfect for the Bruisers. You should get him in the band. And I was like, I didn't even know what I wanted to do, if I still wanted to do it. I didn't. Johnny, fucking to his credit, came out in his van, drove across the country, fucking ended up back in Portsmouth, and lived in my driveway for a while in a van down by the river. And he literally, I'm going to say this right now, if Sean hadn't put Johnny into the mix, I don't think we would have continued, because I was so broken at that point, losing Jeff. He was my right-hand man. I didn't know what to do. And all of a sudden, this kid who was hungry for the Bruisers and reminded me how important the Bruisers were to the scene and what they had meant to him. And also I was suddenly getting all this, I was in front of a guy who wanted to be part of the Bruisers, but was reminding me what the Bruisers were. And I needed that at the time because I had lost sight of that. We had done so much, but you go through so many lineup changes, and it's like you're the only guy pushing this giant boulder up a hill. There were so many times where I'm like, is this where am I, what the fuck am I doing? I'm working shitty jobs to play music.
Yeah.
But that's what we do. And and if you're listening to this and you're a kid out there who wants to do music, don't do it. You know what I mean? No, but if you do, just realize the only reason why you should do it is because you love it. And if anything good happens as a result of that, that's icing on the cake. That's extra. Yeah. Because loving it should be enough. Yep. Doing it because you love it should be enough. And if you have some other reason why you're doing it, and the loving it in the passion for it isn't the thing in front of all of that, you're not going to do it. It's never going to be believable because people aren't stupid. And inevitably you become this empty shell of, lack of a better analogy, a politician. Yeah. Because people can look at somebody who's sincere and believes what they're saying, or somebody who's just reading from a script, and we've all seen bands that are just going through the motion and literally checking the box. Oh, played another show, give me my money. Yeah. And then we've seen the bands where you leave the show and you're like, fuck, I'm inspired. Yeah, yeah. You know what I mean? And that's what music should do. Especially with a lot of these reunion tours and whatnot. Yeah. That's where you go to some and you'd be like, oh no, these dudes, they had to do it again. Yeah. And then you go see Black Flag, the Greg Ginn one, and you're like, fuck this shit, dude. Why did you spend this much money to go see this? I was never more disappointed in anything than when I went to go see that. Yeah. Because they played New Bedford
was it a year or two ago?
Right.
And I'm not in the business of talking shit, but if I'm shelling out $50 to go see Black Flag, and it's literally like you said, they're just going through the motions, and it's like, all right, just pay me at the end of this. It's like, why are you even doing it?
Why
dude?
then?
Why
well,
even
that's
do
it's
it?
because our music, and I can say our music because we all became a part of it and we all vested our own lives into it, so it belongs to us too. Has never been about that. What you just described.
Yeah.
And it's become that. And I try to tell people all the time, like when I sat on these, but because Dropkicks, when I joined the band in 1998, we were in a van, we were 4-piece, we were shucking and jiving, we were hustling, we were doing whatever we could do to stay in the game. But what had happened for me on my musical journey is I had met 3 other guys who were willing to devote everything to it and willing to roll the dice to see what would happen. There was no guarantees. I mean, at that point we were signed to Hellcat. We had a manager. There were things in place that I didn't have with the Bruisers that made things seem to be more organized, shall I say, but they weren't. They were just as unorganized, and just as much could have gone wrong, and did at times with that.
Or even more sometimes. Sometimes you get the wrong person that's supposed to be on your team, and they fuck shit up.
Well, that's just it. I'm talking about almost 23 years now that I've been with this band, and I'm still the new singer. You know what I mean? I'm still like, Mike McCogan, God bless him, but he was in the Dropkick Murphys for 26 months. Yeah. You know what I mean? And somehow he got a Bon Scott out of that. How do you get a Bon Scott out of that?
The best thing is that you measured that in like baby years. Like you didn't even say 2 years.
No,
you gave it in months.
It's 26 months. No, it's 26 months because you got to understand, he quit the band. And again, this isn't talking shit about Mike. This is a history lesson, kids. So differentiate that. Mike is a friend of mine, so I'm not talking shit about Mike. These are the facts, though. The facts are he quit the Dropkick Murphys because he did not want to do it anymore. It wasn't something he liked. So he was looking at a gift horse in a mouth. This is a guy who was hungry to do music. So I listened to Do or Die, and I came away from that going, fuck no, I can't do this. Not because I thought Mike's a better singer, because when it comes to music and opinions, it's just your opinion anyways. You know what I mean? There is no, I mean, okay, if you want to get into actual, opera or classical music, and okay, we can, that's like algebra, you know what I mean? But we're talking about ham and eggers here. So in the world of ham and eggers,
punk rock is not
it's exactly these are opinions, so my band's better than your band. I mean, that's just like, there's no way to quantify. These are just all freaking opinions. You know, well, I've got more people that feel that way. That's great. You're winning the rock fight. That's about it. You know what I mean? Like, can you take it to the bank? Inevitably, can you take it to the bank? You know what I mean? So, but that's not why. Like I said before, that shouldn't be the catalyst. That shouldn't be the reason. That shouldn't. So, so we're a 4-piece band. We're going all over the fucking world. We're trying to,
But to back up, you were talking about why you didn't.
Yeah, you got to keep me on task.
Yeah, you were just saying. When you first heard Do or Die, you were saying you couldn't do it.
So thank you. And you're gonna have to do this a lot because I sidetrack myself.
No, it's cool.
No.
But that's an interesting thing to follow up.
No, it's true. It's so what happened was I literally remember. So I had gotten back once again from a European tour, Blood for Blood, Bruisers, Europe. We had gone all the way from, we were as far south as France and as far north as Finland. We ended the tour in Finland, La Paranta. It's just 20 clicks from the Russian border. You know what I mean? It was fucking snow, and it was like already spring and there was snow. And when we got there, the parking lot was full of kids that were in middle school aged, and they were all drinking from brown paper bags. And we were playing at 1 that morning. So when I say there was a pile of passed out kids in front of the stage, it was like maybe 2 people awake for us. It was a bum out. But hey, that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. But so I'd come back from Europe. I had $50 in my pocket. I had to go find another job. I Molotov had garnered the interest of Eurotaf, not Epitaph America, but Eurotaf. We'd had a meeting, in fact, that tour in Amsterdam with people at Eurotaf, which is Epitaph's sister label in Europe and in Amsterdam, Holland. And they were very interested in signing the Bruisers, possibly, contingent upon the lie that I told, which is that we had an entire record that sounded like Molotov already ready to go because I wanted them interested. So I had to make that up, but we didn't have anything.
Yeah.
We had nothing. So I come back from that very successful / unsuccessful tour of 5 weeks in Europe. Once again, nothing to show for it in terms of monetarily, because the reality is I got rent, I got bills, I got this. My wife is working all the time. We want to have a family someday. We want to do this. And I'm not making any moves towards any of that. And to her credit, she has never once ever said anything to me about what the fuck are you doing? She's just always supported me. Always, always. And I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for her. And I know that. But so she hung in there with me, God knows why, because I'm a fucking asshole. But seriously, I did not know what was going on. My phone rings, and it's this girl, Femke, from Eurotaf. And she's like, Al, did you hear what happened to the Dropkick Murphys? And I'm like, whoa, what happened? What happened? She's like, you should call Ken Casey right now. Call Ken Casey. They got sick. They all got very sick, and they had to cancel off the business tour. I go, what? Jesus. Well, so I'm off the phone. I'm calling Kenny. Kenny and the Dropkicks and the Bruisers, we've done a bunch of shows. They used to open for us, then we're open for them. And you know what I mean? There's some bitterness there because they're successful. We're not. I ain't going to lie. When Johnny Rio never finished that story, he brought the demo tape. He played the first bars of Fight Starter Karaoke. And immediately I heard The Clash, Jail Guitar Doors. And I grabbed that cassette and I fucking tore it out of my boombox and I hucked it across the fucking kitchen. I said, get the fuck out of my fucking house, Rio, with this shit. I can't believe you even brought this in my house. Those guys are going nowhere fast, I'll tell you that. Well, egg on my face, Yeah. But that's the truth. That's the true story. You had a guy who'd done a band for 10 years, 17 lineup changes, and here comes this band out of nowhere, and they got their shit together, man, and they are a good fucking band, and I did not want to admit that at all because they had everything I wanted, and then their singer quits. So back to what I was saying. Phone rings. It's this girl from Holland. Call Kenny. So I call him up. I go, I'm expecting the death rattle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hello? Kenny? Yeah. Hey, Al. You all right? Yeah. You heard what happened, right? I go, yeah, I heard what happened. Are you all right? He goes, yeah. I go, well, I heard you all got sick and you're in your deathbed and stuff. He goes, huh? Oh, no, Mike quit. I go, Mike quit the band? He goes, yeah, he quit in Texas while we were in the middle of this tour. He just came into the hotel and was like, I quit. I don't want to do this anymore. So you have to realize at the time, Do or Die had been out for maybe 6 weeks, maybe. It had done 1,700 the first week, which for a band that no one's heard of before was huge. And the reason why people had bought that record, the 1,700 people that bought that record was because of the Mighty Mighty Bosstones took Boston on the road. They took the bands that nobody had heard of before. They took the Amazing Royal Crowns. They took Bim Scala Bim. They took the Dropkick Murphys. The Mighty Mighty Bosstones, God bless them, they are one of those bands that, get oftentimes, too often, forgotten in the story of punk and hardcore in Boston. Because in my opinion, if it wasn't for bands such as the Bosstones, bands like Dropkick Murphys would have never even gotten their foot in the door in the first place. And so, in my opinion, this band, and that all happened before my time, but that's another inspiring thing about our music is that you have these things that happen where someone goes, I don't care about the numbers. I don't care about this. They're touring with us, and that's punk rock. You know what I mean?
And that was also a testament to the Boston scene too, because it was a very, we're
close knit.
close knit,
Yeah.
and we almost got to be because we're in the shadow of New York, which is like a big hub for music industry, no matter what genre.
Yeah, yeah.
And then Boston's just kind of only a couple hours away,
Yeah.
so it's like
Yeah,
we're kind of like
you had the rivalries in the sports world, which bled into this whole music thing, and and you had the disrespect that went on in the early days of Boston bands going down to CB's talking shit about New York on stage, and then you had New York going, listen, we ain't having that. We ain't having that. That's not happening. It's not how we run things down here. And that got taken care of. I mean, there's a lot to that story. I ain't going to go into it because if you weren't there, then you don't know, and you don't need to know. But let's just suffice to say that everybody loves everybody now, and that's all that matters. You know what I mean? And everybody, but when I saw I saw Agnostic Front on the Victim in Pain tour in 1984. They played the basement of a YMCA in Boston. Okay, now at the time in 1984, the first. It wasn't the first mass shooting, but it had come on, the Texas Tower thing had been a long time before that. So they had the McDonald's shooting. So this guy went into a McDonald's with basically a bowling bag full of guns, and he just started shooting people. So that was like, that was going on. And the reason why I bring that up is as I'm walking up the stairs to go down into the basement to go see this show, I'm with my buddy Keith Eaton. His sister was dating. His sister Sarah was actually dating Springer's brother Phil, and he was known as Phil and Flash. He took pictures for everybody back then. So, in any event, we were staying at their apartment. We were going to see this band Agnostic Front. Never even heard of them before. Void from DC was playing. Murphy's Law was playing. It was, and then all these other bands that I can't even. I think some band called No Idea, but I can't remember all the bands. But there's a lot of bands. But AF opened. Now, so I'm walking up the stairs, and there's a kid sitting on the stairs in a McDonald's uniform, and he's got one of them burger hats on. Like the little skinny hats. He's taken the time, Truth, to put bullet holes all through. He's even got his name tag, Jimmy, all bullet holes in blood. And he's sitting there, and I look at Keith, and he looks at me, and I'm like, whoa. But that was punk rock, right?
Just pushing and prodding. And
there were 40, 50 kids, I swear, sitting on the steps, and everybody had a brown paper bag. And Boston's finest, as we hadn't even walked in yet, and we were literally about to go in, and the Boston finest pull up, and two cops get out, and this big black cop points at all the kids and goes, all of you guys, fuck it, just go around the alley and just don't be on the street with those beers. Jesus Christ. And then he got back in the cruise and left because he realized it's going to be there all day. You have to deal with this shit. You know what I mean? So he just threw us all around the corner, But the show on the flyer, and I wish I had the flyer still, it said skins free, everyone else $3.
Yeah.
And I had these big fat suspenders, like the kind that buttoned into the Bundeswehr pants, like I was a fireman, because the skins back then, all these guys are like on the trad tip. Hey, God bless you. You got way better fucking dressing skills than we did back then because American skins wore your father's GI boots. So I had these big old GI boots that were like 2 sizes too big for me. They looked like big clown boots. I had these big red suspenders. Not braces, suspenders. And I had a kerchief Harley style on, covering my little ratty mohawk there. So I look like, hey, I could be a skin because I'm, bald everywhere, important, right? Except for, anyway. So I'm with my buddy Keith. He was a skin. He was shaved down. So we're walking in, and he's like, all right, you guys are good. And then I feel these 2 fingers on my kerchief. He pulls it $3. I'm like, shit. But Agnostic Front open.
Yeah.
So it's like this old, it's a YMCA. So they have like this stage set up, and they have like the curtains, so the curtains are drawn. And so, you hear the, you hear the bass start for Victim in Pain, right? And then the freaking curtains, and I'll never forget this, Truth. This was one of these times where you remember every fucking moment of the show. The curtains open, and there's a mic in a mic stand, and this band is just going into this song. It was Victim in Pain. And me and my buddy Keith immediately go to the front of the venue, and nobody's up there, right? And this guy comes flying out from stage right, and he has a kerchief on as well. And he like does this jump, and he grabs the mic out of the mic stand, knocks the mic stand over, and just goes right into Victim in Pain. And I just remember he tore his shirt off, and he had this, and it wasn't the Elio yet. It was just this jailhouse crucified skin and on his chest bare. And I was just like, and that was back then in '84, like bikers and military people had tattoos, but hardcore kids, you didn't really see a lot of tattoos. So when, and you maybe see one shoulder piece there, but you didn't even see like neck or head. You didn't see crazy shit like that. No, those were bikers, right? And then you see these guys from New York, and they're just like, you know, it was like Boston seems like suburban kids living at home. These were like squatters. These were like real deal, like, whoa. I just remember watching Roger being like, holy shit. I mean, I went to Newbury Comics the next day, and I bought the gatefold version of Victim in Pain. And I still got it. Yeah. I still got it. And then my buddy Andy Smith fucking took off and ran away from home, and he was borrowing it. And Kabula actually gave me his copy. He traded it for some Bruisers singles. It was a good deal, actually. He signed it and everything, you know. But it's the same. It's the original one. But so I did get it back. But I'll never forget that. And actually, Murphy's Law played later on. I remember Jimmy had discharge. He had a discharge, his hair all discharged, and he was riding on some guy's shoulders, and he had one of them like $30 porno mags, and he was raffling it off, you know? But, oh man, it was just like, that was like, you know, the whole day. I mean, you were talking about, so there was a huge fight. There was a huge brawl. I was like, I'm from New Hampshire. Get the fuck out of here. You know, people like chairs. I mean, it was like Boston and New York weren't getting along. There was a huge brawl. Me and my buddy Keith, we ended up getting out of there. But you know, we were drinking Half and Raffers near Fenway Park at some little, like, I don't even know if it's there anymore. It was like a little playground. And my buddy Keith had a fake ID, and we got a bunch of what we called them Green Death. It was like malt liquor, Half and Raffers, and we were drinking. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the puzzles under the cap. So we were drinking, and we were like, let's go back to Sarah's, his sister's place, and we had a good buzz. And all of a sudden, and the streets were like totally empty. And all of a sudden, boom, the streets were full. The Sox game just got out, and Keith slaps my shoulder. He goes, fuck, Sox game just got out. This is a bad time for us, right? And next thing you know, this guy's standing in front of us with like 4 other dudes, and he's like pointing at Keith. And Keith had a bumper. We had a bumper of Bud, that a 40 ounce that he had, you know, we had finished the Half and Raffers, but he had this bumper of Bud that he and I were sharing with the brown paper bag walking down the street. And these guys kind of posted up in front of us, and this guy's like, yo, let me hit that beer. And Keith was interesting, because he was a really nice guy, but you didn't want to fuck with him, you know what I mean? But he had this like face that just was like, really, he was just a friendly guy, you know what I mean? And like his sister Jean hung out with us. She was a deadhead, but she was so cool. Like she hung out with us. She's like, yeah, the punkers, you know. She was awesome, you know. And anyway, so Keith was like, yeah, sure, and gave him the beer. He didn't even take a pull off it. He put it between his legs and goes, it's mine now. What do you think of that? And then his buddies were like, come on, man, don't be a dick. We don't want to get in a fight right now. And while they were distracting him, Keith reached between his legs and grabbed the beer, and we beat feet down the street, right? Ha, ha, ha. I hear this behind me, and just as I look, crack, this guy fucking delivers a death blow right from above. I mean, you can still see, I got a scar. It runs right along. It's been with me ever since. Yeah, because he fucked me up. I was out cold. When I came to, Keith was standing over me, like, you know, like posted up, taking shots in the face, because he wasn't going to let them put another hand on me, because that's what you did back then.
Absolutely.
You always had your friends back. You didn't run. You know what I mean? And I mean, unless we were all together, you didn't leave anybody behind. Is my point, you know. And there's some other people ended up helping us out, but yeah, that was like that was what it was like back then. You know what I mean? Like it was like you weren't safe. This wasn't like, no one was gonna help you out. And if the cops showed up, it was gonna get worse. You know what I mean? Because they weren't your friends.
They didn't want to deal with it.
They didn't want to. They're mad that they had to deal with it. And what the fuck you fucking wearing there? What the fuck's in your ears? What the fuck is that? What do you do to your hair? What do your parents like you? You know what I mean?
That's what that's one of the things we always it's come up on the podcast before is that when we came up, it was different times. And you were fighting at the show. You were fighting to get to the show. You were fighting on your way out of the fucking show. Like, especially like you said, it was like if the Sox game was letting out and you were coming out of the fucking show, you were like, fuck.
Yeah.
Because it was like, shit, we got to deal with this.
Yeah.
Some dumb shit's going to happen. And then the problem is later on, when you're a little kid, you're like, fuck. And then later on, you start to embrace it a little bit. You're like, fuck yeah, dude.
This is, exactly. You like the man. It was part of the culture. Exactly.
And then later, you're like, all right, you gotta calm down with that. But it was a good time. So getting back to it, why did you say you couldn't do it?
All right. Yeah. It's like, that's what happened. So I listened to Do or Die, and it was something about the way that Mike's, it's just like you try to put your own voice into something. And it's like he's established himself already with doing that. So he was the voice that I was hearing when I'm hearing those songs. So it took me, but here's the other thing rock and roll is blues. You know what I mean? It's the blues. It's Irish music is not the blues. So when you're singing, rock and roll is in the pocket. It's in the pocket. It's in the pocket. When we have done things with artists that are big time known stuff and they've had to do our stuff, they have a great amount of difficulty because everything is ahead of the beat with Dropkick Murphys. It's ahead of the beat. So you're singing ahead of the beat. That took the longest time for me to get. Also establishing my own style with the Dropkick Murphys. I had my style with the Bruisers. Bruisers is a different thing. You know what I mean? Like I always say when I do the Bruiser reunions, that is the toughest for me now because it's not, I was doing what I was doing with what I had. Well, they're just that we didn't do ballads. We didn't do. I mean, you look at the discography and the songs that we've tackled with the Dropkick Murphys, and it's like I was a kid. I was 20 years old when I started the Bruisers. When I joined the Murphys, I was 30. You know what I mean? I'm giving away my age now, but yeah. So I thought there was just something about the way that Mike's delivery. It just, so I came away from it going, I can't do this. I can't do it. It got in my head. I was like, I thought I might be able to do it, but I can't do it. So I didn't say that to them because I didn't want to so Kenny, I said, I'm not sure I'm digging into this. I don't know how this is going to be. He goes, we've written our second record. I go, what? I go, you've written your second record already? He goes, yeah. He goes, we have demos. And this is the best. So back then, what you did at your practice space is you had a boombox with a Maxell cassette and you would just fucking record it. I mean, people probably still do this, but I'm just saying, like, that was when someone said I have a demo. That's what you expected. You didn't expect anything where you could separate any instrument. It is what it was. So they gave me a demo of basically the Curse single. And there was Boston Asphalt, BAC, and Devil's Brigade. So when I heard Devil's Brigade and I sung that in my house with it, I was like, I can do this. This I can do. Because his voice wasn't on there.
Yeah, it wasn't etched.
Yeah, it was just Kenny doing like spot vocals for the thing. And Kenny, by the way, when I joined the band so when I joined the band, he was like, just so you know, we don't talk on stage. We just play one of the. It was like that. It's like Ramones. We have nothing to say to anybody. That was what I was told. So I was like, okay, I was used to holding court. I mean, fucking Bruisers,
I remember.
Yeah, you might get 6 less songs because Al decided to just fucking go off about somebody he hated. You know what I mean? Far. But yeah. Yeah. But so I think I'm making myself laugh. I think that it was that connection with with their second record that gave me an idea that maybe I could do this. What happened was, so as I said before, Mike had quit in the middle of a business tour and Warzone. So Warzone and the business were coming up the East Coast, and so the Bruisers filled in those gaps where Dropkicks had, which is actually, when I think back on it, how fortuitous was that I got to, spend time with Ray, because Ray died soon after that, and that was really cool because he was such a solid dude, and he was really, he treated everybody the same. You know what I mean? He was just like, he was exactly what everybody said he was like. He was just like a regular guy, and he was just a fucking great guy.
Yep.
I already knew Mickey and Steve and Mick and Terry Bones, and so here's the thing: when the business asked to stay at your house for a couple nights, that's not a couple nights. That's at least a week. And so the business stayed with me for a week at the end of that tour. Probably again, now that, with Mickey being gone now, some of my finest memories, you know what I mean? Because as I said, I'd met those guys for the first time back in 1994. When they came over the first time, I want to say it was 95 when they played the Rat the first time. Do you remember?
Yeah, I believe so, because
they were amazing. They were amazing.
I didn't get to see it because that's right when I left for Arizona, and I was
and they didn't go that far. They just did New York and Boston, and I think maybe Providence.
I was so pissed too.
And they were really, and it was really, and Mick knows this, God rest his soul, but I know he's smiling down on us, and he knows this, and he knew this. When he before he passed, when he made his peace with Steve, he got held up with the Gia, and it started to mess with his performance, and they weren't doing their best shows towards the end, unfortunately, and it just, I'm not talking out of school, I'm just, and that was why Steve wasn't with them anymore, and Mickey Drummer wasn't with them anymore, and it just kind of became this. It wasn't the business I remembered, and I remember seeing Mick in Las Vegas the year before he died. I want to say we played the punk rock bowling.
Yeah.
It was AF was on it. It was that year, so it was AF Business, us. We did the entire Do or Die album.
And how was that for you?
That was the thing. Is like, so I supported that record, didn't I? He quit, so I had to go on tour and support a record that I wasn't even on and make it relatable. So that was my challenge. Truth, my challenge was, I've always my performing, if you want to call it that, whatever, what I do on stage was always real. I had to be able to, from the ground up, believe in it. So how do I do this? Because the Gangs All Here stuff, even though I wasn't there for it, there was nothing before me with it. It became mine. But this stuff, it was not that it didn't become mine, but it took me a lot longer, and it took me a lot longer to warm up to it. And even to this day, it's like, I'd rather just not do those songs because, it's a different band now anyways, not different, but it's a different era. When you're talking about something that long ago,
sure,
you know what I mean? It's a different, but in any event. So, I remember I went down to Quincy, Kenny called me up, right. We had talked, he told me that Mike had quit, and I'd said, well, good luck with that. He called me a couple days later, and he was like, listen, he goes, we've been trying people out. They had this garage in Quincy where they'd hit the door and the door would go up. And he said, literally, as the door's going up, when I see the kid's shoes, I'm hitting the button to have it go back down again, because I'm like, I know right away just by this kid's shoes. This guy, he's like, apparently there was one kid who literally came in and he was just like totally like mute. And they were like, so you're a singer? He's like, yes. Have you sung before? Yes. I'm a real spark plug. Like no joke. He described himself as a real spark plug. I mean, it was like, it was like public radio, you know what I mean? Like in any event. So Kenny's telling me about these nightmares that he's going through. And he's like, look, we love your voice. We've always loved your voice. We'd love to hear how your voice sounds on some of these new songs that we've written, because we've written our whole new record, and we can't find anybody.
And they had the lyrics written too.
They had the lyrics written, they had everything, but they needed a voice. So it was kind of proposed to me, not in the sense of you would come down and try out. We kind of want to just hear what it sounds like. We really love your voice, but we know you're doing the Bruisers.
Yeah.
At that time, I said, well, actually, I've made the decision to not do the Bruisers anymore on my own. Like, and this had happened. I hadn't shared it with any of my band members. So the problem was then, thank God there wasn't an internet and social media then, because then everybody, like, he quit the band to join Dropkick Murphys and blah, blah, blah. And that wasn't the case at all. I had already made the decision after the Blood for Blood tour that I couldn't do this to my wife anymore. It wasn't fair to her. Sure. I was going to go get a factory job with benefits and suck it up, you know what I mean, and not do music. So this opportunity presented itself. I went down to Quincy in my Toyota Tercel, I remember, and Kenny said, park in front of the big house that's next to the garage. I forget what street that was on, but in Quincy, that was Rick's grandmother. They called her the sheriff. So he didn't tell me anything. He just said Rick's grandmother. I figure it's grandmother, right? So there are these long cascading stone steps that go up to this like big, like, I wouldn't say mansion, but big, pretty big house.
Sure.
And this door opens up, and it's like, as soon as I park and I get out, this little old lady comes out, and I'm like, oh, hi there. Hi. Get that goddamn car out from in front of my goddamn house now. I'm like, jump back in the car, and I like drive all the way down the street and park there. I'm like, Jesus Christ. So, then I see Kenny show up, and I'm like, some old lady yelled at me, told me to move. She's like, oh, the sheriff. You met the sheriff. Like, so anyway, we'd have to sneak in the house to use if you had to drop a deuce, you had to sneak in while she was napping anyways, that's a whole nother story. But so I went in and I sung, I think the first verse of 10 Years of Service. And it was the first verse of 10 Years of Service, and they stopped playing. And Kenny just said, I don't think you've been singing to your potential in the Bruisers. And I was like, well, I don't really think it's a matter of potential. This is how I'm hearing it needs to be sung. I didn't really, think about it. So in any event, he goes, do you mind if we have I'm like, yeah. So I went out of the room, and I was like, I guess that didn't go too well. And then he opened the door, and he was like, look, because at that point we'd had some other conversations I'd share with him that, I was kind of on my way to, doing this, what I said, getting a factory job or whatever. And he said, listen, we can offer you this, a place in our band. He wanted to give me like writing. He wanted to he said, we'll give you publishing on Gangs All Here and this. And I was like, no, I'm not taking publishing on stuff I didn't write.
Sure.
Which I think at the time showed him that I wasn't, what it was about for me. And it showed to me what it was about for him, because he was willing to share that with me if I was willing. So, we were an opening band. We're a four-piece, we're driving in a van everywhere. But I had met people, Truth, who for the first time were going to, were willing to do what it took to go on the road.
But it also showed you where the head's at, where you guys are an open band, but they're talking about publishing. And like a lot of bands aren't even thinking about that shit.
Exactly. I didn't know. And myself, I'd never even thought. I mean, we just wrote songs and we put them out. It wasn't like we were, what I mean? It was
you weren't registering publishing companies.
I wasn't, it wasn't. That was all done later on. What I mean? It wasn't even, exactly. It wasn't. But I became an ASCAP member in 1998, I remember. And I can tell you emphatically that card was used to spread more peanut butter on bread because you never got a knife in the backstage. They never gave you the knives. And I remember James Lynch when he was just in the Ducky Boys. I go, you see this card? It's worth nothing except, and then I spread the peanut butter on the bread with it because I would get these checks in the mail from ASCAP for like 0.75 cents. And I was like, this is so retarded. Like, this is...
It costs more to send it.
Yeah, it costs more to send it. Like, do you really think I'm going down to the bank to get 75 cents? This is ridiculous. Yeah, I was. No. But in any event, but then later on, like, oh, okay, so this is actually something good to be part of. But I was learning as I went. I had spent 15 years in bands prior to my time with Dropkick Murphys. My idea was, I've been in bands, I'm, blah, 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 blah. I knew nothing. I knew nothing about hardcore touring. I knew nothing. I learned everything. I mean, there were things I knew.
Yeah.
But as far as how everything that I've learned, it's been through the experience of being part of it. You know what I mean? And I'm so blessed. I look at my life. I am a blessed individual to be able to do something that I love to do, and then also have it be so popular with people. I mean, living a dream. I'm living a dream, and that is not lost on me. You know what I mean? That's something that, during this whole COVID time, it's been hard sometimes to reconnect with that, and I think that's been the challenge for a lot of us right now. But I'm so lucky to do this. Yeah.
You guys got anything planned or coming up? I mean, I know it's hard to schedule anything really, Well,
that's the thing. So we're going forward as if things are going to open up for 2021. So we are announcing European dates for 2021. But here's the thing, and I don't want to be a killjoy to people out there. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. I do not see, and I'm not even talking about elections or anything like that. I just don't see the way the world's responding to this. I mean, we just saw Ireland just shut down. I think they've opened up a little bit again, but they shut completely down.
Germany did too, right?
Parts of Germany shut back down again. Italy shut back down again. I just talked to my friend Ninka in Holland. They just shut back down again. So it's not going away. The cases are rising. What I feel like is fear is ruling us these days,
Absolutely.
And it's interesting to note that all the things that offer society hope have also been taken away. So, faith, people of faith are not allowed to go practice that faith. So you're not allowed in your mosque or your synagogue or your church. You're dissuaded from, I don't know if you've seen these rules for
Thanksgiving
for California. It's insane.
California is absolutely fucking insane right now.
Well, it's California. What Californians are being put through is absolutely insane.
That's what I mean.
And what they are taking a knee to, some of them, is just, I just can't understand why that's happening. But I mean, when you have a guy like Gavin Newsom literally telling you can have only this many people to your house for Christmas, and oh, by the way, you can use your bathroom, and like, who the hell do you think you are?
Yeah. And
what country do you think you're living in?
And then the scary thing is they're shutting off your utilities.
Oh yeah.
If they feel like you violated those terms. And then they were talking about trying to make people put masks on in between bites if they're at a fucking restaurant and shit.
My son Strummer just found a site that sells masks that are for drinking and eating. So they have the gap. What are we doing over here, man? What are we doing over here? So
It's not funny, but it's so ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. And here's the thing. It's like, I'm not going to sit here. And, we've kind of slid off the things and into this all of a sudden, but it is there.
Yeah. It's the beauty of a podcast. We'll go wherever. We'll get back to it.
And I'm not the kind of person who's going to sit here and say, no, that's, it's this, it's that, it's this. But here are the things that I'm gleaming from it. As I was just saying, we've kind of pitched there's so much hopelessness going on right now. And it's all tied to this COVID thing. And it's like, so music offers hope, can't have music. Faith offers hope, can't have faith. Gatherings offer hope, can't have gatherings. It's just misery. It's misery. And it's, and what's really, it strikes me, it makes me, it's what am I trying to say? It blows my mind when I'm walking my dog in the woods,
Yeah.
and somebody comes along and they've got one of these masks on, and I'm like, I'm not going to say anything to anybody. It's none of my business. So I keep my mouth shut, but I can't help but thinking, well, there's so much fresh air. You're denying your lungs of fresh air. That's all that's happening right now. You are not protecting yourself. You're actually lowering your immune system. Your brain needs oxygen. You're actually dumbing yourself down. It's heartbreak. What's really heartbreaking is when I see the kids being forced to wear masks.
But they're indoctrinated. Now they're going to think this is normal for them.
Well,
now.
This is just it. And this idea that we're indoctrinating our children into all these thoughts, and where do we as parents, where do they think our power ends? Because, I've got all these ideas being floated at the dinner table, and I'm like, well, I don't agree with half the shit that's being said. But as a father, I've got to be careful because I'm not trying to further cause this to continue in the sense of, well, if I send my kids out into a world where my ideas are then coming through my children, they end up being the target of something, and then they don't have they're just repeating what they heard, but they're repeating what they're hearing. So kids are like that, you know what I mean? It's like the little echo chambers walking around, and it's just like, what are we doing? What are we doing? It's really scary, man. And I'm, as someone who's been traveling the world for the last almost 23 years, and to see it here's what people need to understand. This is unprecedented. This has never happened before. World War II was going on. You still had people performing music. You still had people going to church. It was more important then because of the war. So I think because of what's happening right now, music is it's these connections are more important than ever. And you just don't get it from a live stream. And I know people have been doing that, and it's cool in a way because it lets people see things, but you don't connect the same way you connect if you're at a show. Of course
there's no
not.
way you could.
Of course not. That's why I wanted to do this in person with you.
Absolutely.
When you said we could do it on the phone, it's like, we could do it on the phone, but it's like there's something that's just in person is in person. It's like,
I always prefer the in person over the phone. The phone, if someone's far away or whatever, I get it.
Well, yeah, man, and and plus, exactly. I don't want to obviously I don't want to spin into, because I know a lot of people have a lot of opinions out there. Here's the thing. I'm in a band that's known throughout the world, blah, 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 blah. Does that mean that my opinion should mean more than anybody else's? That's where I think a lot of people who are not in entertainment or whatever are just working, having a non-entertainment life, rather. That's not what they do for a living. When an entertainer or an actor or says something about their opinion, and they have this platform where they can reach so many more people, it gets a little scary in the sense of, okay, what makes you think that your opinion, because that's what it is, has more weight than the guy who doesn't have that at his disposal?
But at the same time, I don't ever discourage this stuff from coming out on the podcast.
No.
Because the problem is, going back to the main thing, my opinion, who the fuck am I, right, too? But the thing is, for people to have a more nuanced conversation, to talk things out and let people make their own opinions or observations after that is important, because what ends up happening is, whether I'm talking to you or I'm talking to my friend Terry Shanks as a knife maker, or this guy or that gal, we can have a conversation that isn't giving you the side of the story that the mainstream media isn't, because the mainstream media is only forcing the fear down your throat.
Right.
The fear and obedience.
Right. Narrative.
And narrative. And I always begin, if we get down this road, I always say, this is with the caveat that this is no disrespect to anyone who has COVID or has had someone, lost someone to it, or experienced really bad symptoms of it. It's just that those people are in such the minority. It's so small compared to the impact on the rest of the fucking world.
Well, yeah, everything you're saying is right on. And here's the thing: when this thing started, I was completely petrified as well. I mean, I was sitting there watching the news, and
it's when they were still showing us videos of people just collapsing and dying on the street in China.
Wuhan, and then there was this whole kind of fugazi of what do we really even know is going on in China? We don't know. We don't know a freaking thing. And then you got these people going, "Oh no, this is exactly what's happening." It's like, it's China, man. They're not going to ever tell you how many people really died.
No.
They're never going to, it's like you're just.
I mean, and the facts is about China is that we have an antagonistic relationship, that it's like they are a communist country, very corporate and government controlled. The corporations are part of the government, or the government takes part of the corporations over, whatever. We have a situation where we rely on them for cheap products, and they rely on us for money to buy cheap products. But by and large, outside of that, we're not. Remember, capitalism and communism used to be at odds, right?
Well, they still are.
They still are. So it's like we're friends because of economic ties, but not.
Yeah, and as far as communism goes, I mean, when you have oligarchs sitting at the top making money off the bottom, then that's not really true communism anyway. So I don't really think.
But communism never works.
Listen, I mean, I'm a child that grew up in literally living in communism. My father got a teaching job in West Berlin in 1974. And 75, I lived in West Berlin.
Sure, before
the Berlin Wall, all of it. I was in first and second grade, but I remember it clearly. I went back and did an exchange program in high school in Braunschweig, Germany, which is a town that is right on the border. So there was, around all of East Germany was a fence, and it was a series of fences. So you go, okay, a fence like a mesh fence. It was like, no, it was like, you had one tall fence. If you got over, and with Stacheldraht, with the barbed wire, and you would go over. If you got over that fence, then there was a minefield, and if you got through that minefield, then there was the final fence, and this final fence had 3 sections where if you tripped a wire, you would get shot in your legs, in your torso, and in your neck by shrapnel. So it wasn't even a bullet that was going to hit you. It was just going to be, God knows what was going to tear into your body, as you would just hang there until they came and got you down. You'd probably bleed out. The point is, when you have people that aren't free and you're free, you know what I mean? Or your interpretation, and people are like, well, what's freedom, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I can come and go.
Yeah. I
can come and go. I can choose to leave. I can choose to stay. You have a choice. That's freedom. These people don't have a choice. Like it's hard to, when you see someone wear a Che Guevara shirt, and they identify as gay or gay friendly or whatever, I go, okay, do you know the history of the guy whose shirt you're wearing, that you bought that? It was right next to the Bob Marley shirt at the head shop, and you think that's cool because you've seen other people, and yes, socialism and communism, and that's great, because that's what Americans do. They get into things. I'm going to get into this because I live in a country where I can just choose to get into something. It's like a library of different lifestyles. They
get into it at a surface level, probably.
Well, but my point is, it's America, so we have
do it.
this luxury of going, well, I'm going to live as a this person and as that person. That's great. Do you understand that the rest of the world is not like that?
Yeah.
That if you got on a chair in Germany and said, fuck Angela Merkel, ich will sie umbringen, I want to kill her. If you said that, you're going to have dudes show up at your house that are going to arrest you. You can't say that. You can't fucking say that. Like, the things that we take for granted in this country, it's insane. And then you have this younger audience, younger group of people now that are reaching the age of voting and getting jobs and living on their own and all this stuff. And you go, okay, what's this going to look like? And there's all this entitlement all of a sudden.
Maybe living on their own. A lot of people still living with their parents till like 30
that's what I was going to say. More actually per capita right now in history, there has not been a time in history where more kids that are of the age where they could live on their own have lived. I mean, more kids are, I mean, obviously it has a lot to do with what's going on right now, but more kids are living, with their parents, than ever before. Is that such a bad thing? I don't know. Maybe it's a good thing in the sense that families are together, but if it's forced, it's probably not such a good thing. And back to what I was saying about this entitlement, this idea of like, all schools should be free and student loans should be forgiven. And by the way, I need $15 an hour also. It's like, okay, all that sounds great. Who's going to pay for it and how is it going to get paid for? Because it still has to come from somewhere. And what people have to understand, so you have this mindset too of like, oh, well, if we take all the people that are the 1% and really rich, we could run everything. It's like, well, actually, that's not true. You could probably run everything for like 3 months. That's what we're talking. So no one really understands like these numbers. You watch a news report and you hear these like, oh, that jet costed this many $1 billion. That these numbers wash over you because we don't know what these numbers are. You know what I mean? Our mind kind of stops at $1 million. That's a lot of money. You know what I mean? But you don't really understand. So I in 1997, I took a couple college courses because I wanted to see if I could actually do anything good at school because I had had such a terrible time with it and I actually did decently. So I took a couple college courses and one of them was a course called Critical Thinking. And it was being taught by this professor named Al Portia, who was a very interesting guy. He had been in Vietnam, he'd come back from Vietnam and actually, the first guy, he walks into San Francisco, and the first bar he walks into, there's a guy playing piano, and it turns out to be Tom Waits. And so he sees Tom Waits, which is like, God, that's amazing. That's an amazing story in itself. But he was one of these people who is all about driving this Marxist socialist kind of communist thing in our colleges that you hear about and you go, what do you mean? I go, well, for example, one day he started the day with, who thinks inherited wealth is something that we should have? And, half the class goes, huh? And I said, well, yeah, I mean, you're talking about me passing on what I have at the end of my life to my children. And he goes, exactly, that should go to the state. And I said, excuse me? And so, but that was his mindset. He believed that. He didn't believe that the family should get that money. It should go to the state.
But then it's crazy that a guy like that is teaching a class called Critical Thinking.
Well, yeah, and this guy is teaching a class called Critical Thinking. So I read somewhere that if you know the political affiliation of your professor, then your professor hasn't done a very good job. You know what I mean? So it's the same thing with the news. So when I was growing up, when you were growing up, we watched the news. You didn't go, well, is Dan Rather a Republican, a Democrat? It was just the news. It was just the news. It was the news. Now we have this, it's like this crafted thing they call news, but if you do a peripheral view of the world and you go, why aren't they talking about what just happened? Like you hear some random thing about that it may have happened in Africa or Turkey or wherever, something, and you're like, why was that left out of the news show? Because that's important. Then you start to realize that the news is what it says, whoever owns it. So
Yeah.
there's 177 human beings on this planet that own every media outlet, newspaper, and magazine.
Yeah.
They all are leaning a certain political way. So you're going to find that within those organizations, that is leaking through. Their mindset is leaking through. So you're going to have this. So my thing today, I wanted to talk a little bit about my feeling about punk rock. And we started texting a little bit last night about this. And I appreciated what you said, because you said, you know, punk rock was never supposed to be partisan. And you're so right. And that was it. And what I have found is, because there's such disdain for the current administration, what's happened over the course of the last 4 years is you have these bands, and I'm not going to name names, who have been on the top of the food chain of the punk world, suddenly coming out against the current administration, but then supporting the administration that would come in and take over. And I go, what? Wait a minute here.
Yeah.
Like, this was always punk rock. We had
Question authority.
We had two middle fingers for everybody. It wasn't.
Yeah.
It was. It doesn't matter if you're standing behind that line. You're part of all that hypocrisy, all of it. None of you. You all have blood on your hands. None of you are innocent. Yeah. So when we talk about, you know, well, this side is better, or that side is better, or that guy's lying, this, we've just been, and I'm guilty of it as well, because I'm
human.
I'm human, but I'm also living in this country, and I'm seeing what's happening, and I'm going to have an opinion about it.
Yeah.
But at some point, Truth, I, as Al Barr, lead singer, Dropkick Murphys, former singer of the Bruisers, having been in punk rock since the early 80s, have to remind myself of where I come from and what this is all about. And have I been duped as well? Yeah. Because to some degree I have been, because if I'm rah-rah-rahing against that guy, rah-rah-rahing against, because he's for that guy, it's like, what are we doing here? We've lost the plot completely, because we were always united against them together. It didn't matter, right, left. They were the enemy. Yeah. They were the real enemy.
And that's why
fight the real enemy.
Absolutely. That's why I say we all, like, because, you know, it's easy to get caught up in shit. You always got to just take a deep breath and step back and go, what the fuck is really happening?
Yeah.
And why am I feeling this way?
Yeah.
And then really look at things like, and no one's stepping back. It's like, okay, now we got to wear masks. All right, now we got to do this. Okay, now we got to do that.
Eat what's on the plate. Eat what's on the plate. Eat what's on the plate.
And it's like, wait, at what point does it? Because then you hear like,
what are they doing in the kitchen? Where's this food coming from?
Yeah, and then it's like, and then you hear like the WHO or the CDC, and it's like, all right, this week they're saying this, this week they're saying that, this week they're saying this. No one really knows what the fuck is going on. So why is everything shut down?
Yeah,
because I'm not seeing bodies like just on the street.
No, I mean,
if it was, I'm 100% for it, or I'm 100% for at the beginning of this. All right, we have to shut everything down for 3 weeks.
Right.
So get what you can. If you
and
can't,
stay home.
If you can't, let's figure out a way to get you the things you need for that 3 weeks.
Right.
Like if you're poor, super poor, you can't.
I was right on that. I was right.
Absolutely,
I was taking care of my mother.
Yeah.
I was taking care of my sister, who had just come back from a trip, so she had to quarantine. I was the only one from my household, and I was coming home. Garage door. My son Strummer opened the garage door. Get back, gloves, disinfecting everything, alcohol, rubbing all the cereal boxes. I was fucking completely nuts. And then they go, we've now updated our thing to realize that it doesn't sit on anything and live. It has to go person to person. So they keep changing it. So then I'm like, I don't need to be doing this anymore. So then, but now where we're at is, it's like you're by yourself in your car and there's nobody near you and you've got a mask on. And I'm like, listen, if that makes you feel better, that's fine. I'm not, but all I'm saying is,
that same dude jerks off with the rubber.
All I'm saying is this, like, we are beings that need oxygen. We breathe oxygen. CO2 comes out. We're not supposed to breathe that in. If you're sitting there with one of these masks on for extended periods of time, I have asthma. So I can tell you that I have needed to use my inhaler more in the last 6-7 months, whatever it's been now, than ever before.
Yeah.
And than ever before. I would use that thing maybe 3 times a week in allergy seasons, whatever. Now I'm using it daily because if I have to use a mask to go into a grocery store, I'm not going to be one of these people who's like, fuck you, I want to have a big fucking thing every day. I don't need that kind of stress. I'll put the fucking thing on. I'll go do what I have to do as quick as I can, and I'll get out. But I mean, what are we doing? What are we doing? When is this? I mean, when are we going to, because I'm not seeing less masks, I'm seeing more masks. And I'm seeing more people in their cars by themselves wearing masks. And I'm going, is this where we're headed? And as you just pointed out, nobody's asking any questions. They're just doing. They're just doing. And at what point do you go, okay, they were saying this at first, they were saying that at first, now they've changed this, now they've changed that. And it's this kind of, so the WHO, we pulled out of the WHO and I heard everybody's flipping out about that. And then I heard what China pays.
Yeah.
And then what we pay.
Yeah.
So China pays $30 million annually into the WHO. The United States of America was paying $648 million annually into the WHO. Why would that be like that? And why, as American taxpayers, doesn't that upset you?
Yeah, sure. It's crazy. And
that's crazy.
It's
right?
crazy.
That's
right?
insane.
Yeah.
And we didn't know that, did we?
No, they don't. That's not what's on the news, because that's not part of the narrative.
Right.
And that's, that's why I always, America could really use a good mainstream independent news source.
Yes, absolutely.
Like everyone has to dig for it, and who has time? I do. And I don't have time, but I'll dig, if I gotta.
Yeah, and nonpartisan, literally, because the thing is these days, everybody is so hyped up trying to find this invisible enemy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And how many friendships have been lost during this time?
Or relationships, whatever.
And families have been, over politics. And it's insane to me, because there was a time when you didn't ask somebody how they were voting. It was none of your business. It was none of my business, none of your business.
But
mind your own fucking business. It's why there's a curtain and you go in there by yourself.
Absolutely.
He's been in there too long.
Yeah. The crazy thing, though, is, and it's not trying to tie all this together or look at it from a different perspective, but even now, if you do ask questions, you're automatically, you're an anti-vaxxer, you're right wing, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, what? No, I'm just asking the fucking question, why are we going to do this?
Perfect example. John Joseph Cro-Mags tweeted something about flu shots. I will never get your flu shot, blah, blah, blah. And I think I retweeted it, or I liked it, or I said something, and immediately 4 of my followers was like, you're anti-vax. And somebody who also follows me goes, what Al says, I don't get flu shots. What people hear, Al is anti-vax. You know what I mean? It's like, no, I never said I was anti-vaccinations.
Yeah.
But here's another thing. Who's Bill Gates? Who is Bill Gates?
Yeah.
What is Bill Gates a doctor?
Yeah. And why is he all of a sudden the vaccine overlord and telling people we're making one, everyone's going to need to take one?
Is he a politician? Did you vote for him? Because I didn't vote for him.
Yeah.
Was he? So what I want to know is why would a guy with a whole lot of money, and if you do your research, he's got a lot of skeletons in his closet. Check out Africa and the village there that he basically tried some of his vaccinations on. It didn't go so good.
Yeah.
Didn't go so good. There's a lot of upset people over there. The ones that lived.
Sure.
The ones that lived.
Exactly. And that's why I tell everyone, it gets very scary when you hear some of these governors we're not going to go to stage 4 until there's a vaccine and this and that. I worked for CDC for a little while. I worked at WHO.
Wow.
I worked at a cancer hospital. I know how long. It doesn't take 6 months to develop a vaccine, to go through all the proper clinical trials.
Right.
There's no way they're going to get anything in the next year or two.
So it takes a long time.
It takes a long time to really get it through, if you do it right, to get through all the clinical trials.
Exactly.
And I know they're going to try and fast track this or whatever, but I tell everyone, don't take the first thing that comes out.
No.
Don't do it. It's like you don't buy a new car the first year a new model comes out because they haven't worked the bugs out. Don't take the first round of vaccines.
You don't buy the first gun that comes out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You let your buddy buy it and then tell you how it sucked.
Yeah, but the scary. I did that with the Smith & Wesson MP45. It was it fit so perfect in my hand, but that thing shot all over the fucking place.
Right.
It had me doubting myself until I grabbed my friend's cig, and then I was fucking driving. And I was like, okay, it's not me, it's the gun.
It's the gun.
But you know, the thing that scares me is that when you do think about these things critically and you look back and you're like, okay, they're scaring us. It's fear. You got to do this, got to do this. And now you can no longer do all the things that make us human in the positive sides of humanity. It's like, are they trying to break us? Or is this just like weird coincidences? Or is there something greater afoot? And I don't want to go down conspiracy theories, but how can you not?
But here's the thing. If you don't take a step back from the painting as it's being done, you're only going to see the corner. You're not going to see the big picture.
Yeah.
So look at history. Look at the long game, if you will. Because if you're just looking at right now, that's just another feather gone. But what's going on? How many feathers did the chicken have to start with?
Yeah.
At the beginning of this.
Yeah. And when the feather's plucked, it never gets put back in.
Well, no. that feather's gone. That's like, it's like the top of my head. You know what I mean? When that hair leaves, it ain't coming back, you know? No. So, it's just the way it is. I mean, you can't, when you hear everybody kind of just rallying behind the narrative, and then if you question it, there's this thing that's going on where immediately somebody assumes your political affiliation. So if you speak out against any of these narratives, immediately they're like, oh, you're for this guy. And it's like, well, when did I say that?
Yeah.
When did I say that? I'm just questioning the thing. So is that what it's about now? Because that's crazy to me. Because if it's now, if you say this, it means you're red. If you say this, it means you're blue. That's why I started this whole thing with, let's get back to punk rock.
Yeah.
Let's start going, no, that's not what this is about. We're in this together. If we're in this together, this isn't about the government. This is about, we're in this together. Because I got news for everybody. The government historically has never cared about people.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
Ever. Until it's election time. So right now, it seems like they do. November 4th, it's back to go fuck yourself.
Go fuck yourself, and we'll see you in the 3 years.
Exactly.
And just give us more money in the meantime.
Exactly. And you know, it doesn't matter who's going to win. We still are facing the same fucking problems no matter who wins. If you ask
absolutely.
me, we're still a divided country. We're still,
But that's what they got. It's the more divided and more polarizing it gets. If you have any opinion, then you're automatically lumped in with that other side. You can't have nuanced opinions anymore.
Exactly.
It's like, no, because and especially I'm like, no, I'm registered independent, motherfucker.
Yeah.
No, you can't pigeonhole me, and it's
but they do, and that's what's so.
And then they just want to deplatform and shut you
cancel
down.
culture. That's just it, and
that's crazy.
And that's the thing, and that's so selective too. And again, it's historically, so. Let me just point out that what's happening right now is we have the New York Post article that was. Completely, it came out about Hunter Biden's laptop. Now, I'm not trying to get into the whole ins and outs of, this and that and who's corrupt and who's not corrupt. Everyone is corrupt. They're all corrupt, right or left. They're all corrupt. I am just saying that I live in a country where we have a thing called the First Amendment, freedom of speech, freedom of the press. And what I saw the other day was the fourth oldest newspaper. Now, just for you people out there who might not know, who are fans of the Broadway musical Hamilton, well, Alexander Hamilton started the New York Evening Post. It is the fourth oldest newspaper in our country.
The sixth largest circulation.
And it was completely suppressed the other day by big tech and by MSM. And as Americans, I don't care who you're voting for, that should terrify you. Should terrify you.
But define suppressed, meaning if you went to fucking share it on Facebook, you could not. It would not allow you to share it.
If you could find it.
If you could find it.
That's
scary partisan games, and I don't care which side it is that's playing those games.
It doesn't matter. It's suppression is suppression. It's suppression. It's if they're going to do it to you, they're going to do it to me. It doesn't matter because they don't see us. They're keeping us occupied infighting. That's what they've done. They've won because we're so divided.
Yeah, they're over here laughing.
Exactly, because the people divided are never going to rise up against them. They don't have to worry about us getting the guillotines out for them.
Yeah.
They're just figuring out, okay, the ones that are, they're trying to figure out who they have to take away to the camps.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Much,
Granted, people are like, what are you talking about? It's like, okay, well, just think about this for a minute. When this whole thing started, we went, okay, this is going to be over by, we booked September, just to give you an idea. Like our St. Patty's Day shows that got canceled in March, we had already rebooked them for that September. And by the time April had hit, we knew those weren't going to happen. Now, what I'm hearing is the stuff that we're setting up for 2021 summer of, those aren't going to happen. It's going to be 2022 before, and that, again, and they're talking about a vaccine. They're talking about, and then you hear about this chip they want to put in it and all this stuff, so they can basically scan you as a person and they can know that you've had a vaccine. It's like, this is getting really, really invasive, really draconian, and starting to sound a lot like what they're doing in China.
Yeah. The funniest quote, and it's not funny, but
interesting. When you say funny, I know what you mean. Yeah.
The funniest quote I heard on this was 1984 was meant to be fiction, not a playbook.
Yeah.
And it's like, fuck, dude. Like, if you go back and read George Orwell, 1984, the shit that was scaring you when you were a kid and you read it, we're beyond that.
We're so beyond that. And here's the thing. It's like we're into Fahrenheit 451 now.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? We're into Fahrenheit 451 because we've gone right from 1984 into now it's like, we're coming for this, we're coming for that.
Yeah.
And who's going to stop them?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because when you think about, again, like I just said, if we're divided, then everybody's just going to mind their own business because that's what happened in Germany.
Yeah.
That's what happened in Germany. When they took the people that didn't agree with what was happening and spoke out about it, you just disappeared. So nobody said anything. Everybody was afraid. And that's what's happening right now. I'm not saying people are disappearing. I'm not saying that. I'm saying fear is real right now.
Yeah.
Fear has people do crazy shit when they're afraid. They don't act rationally at all. You're not going to find any, when you see people literally, when my cousin Heather is coming to Rhode Island for the summer to see family, and she's a teacher in Connecticut, and her neighbor says, when you come back, I'm going to be watching to make sure you don't leave your house. And if you do, I'm calling the police.
Yeah.
Like, where are we living now? What has happened?
Yeah.
We're living in a different country. Like, we got people ratting each other out to the police
over
about
that. What
the fuck are we doing?
Yeah, that's fucking bananas.
This is insane. This is not the America that we grew up in. And what would our grandparents say about this? You know?
Yeah. Well,
it's and like I said, I'm not, everything that I've just said and everything that I'm saying right now, I'm just literally taking note of it. It's not like I don't have a narrative. I'm not trying to. No. I am literally just trying to survive this, and as best I can with my family.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm not a politician. I'm not a professional journalist. I'm not this. I'm just trying to put a perspective. I'm just trying to get people to take a breath and look at what's happening and just try and have a little common sense about things.
Yeah, and before you take that next bite of what was put on your plate, think about where it came from.
Yeah, do you really need that?
Yeah, and
then with Newscom, in California, you found out he had like $2 billion contracts with Chinese mask manufacturers.
Yeah,
of course he's going to try and push mask fucking shit. You know what I mean? Like, how come that guy's not fucking ousted? Like, California, you guys got to step up, get that motherfucker out of there. He's fucking devastating you, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. He's he is the new face of scary government. I think. Like he's literally he's so arrogant and so ego filled, and I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy.
I always think that dead Kennedys, if they were still around with Jello right now in the original lineup, they would have such a field day with making a record about California right now. Well, you know what I mean?
I mean, Jesus. I mean, if California was fascist, you know, when Governor Brown was, you know, Jesus Christ, that was nothing. I mean, you got to remember, Jello ran for mayor of San Francisco, and he came in like third or fourth. I mean, he had some great ideas, you know. I mean, he was like, no cars inside San Francisco, just public transportation because it's too small for cars. But then he was like, if you're a businessman, you had to wear a clown suit. So like that's where he kind of, you know, I mean, like people are like, I love his, wait, what did he say? I would have thought that was cool. Actually.
Me too, yeah.
Dad's going to work again.
What's up, clown shoes?
Yeah, exactly. You know. But look at San Francisco. I mean, I tell people all the time, you want to see something funny, type in fucking poop map or fecal map for San Francisco. Many images will come up, and it'll basically tell you to the minute where a new shit has been taken on the streets of San Francisco,
and not by Labrador. It's by a human. It's a human,
and they're basically instead of making this illegal, what they've done is they've enacted the poop patrol. So you have people actually going out there actively being called. We got a heat stick and, you know, on Folsom and whatever. I mean, Jesus Christ, you know, like. I mean, you've got these shacks where people are supposed to be doing their drugs inside the shack, and they're outside leaning. I mean, it's insane, man. Yeah. It's insane.
I was there a couple of years ago. I just saw dudes booting up on the street, in between their toes, taking their shoes off.
Cities that I used to go to back in the late 90s are like some of my favorite cities to go to. San Francisco, Austin, Texas. I mean, last time I was in Austin playing Stubbs, the whole neighborhood around there was just like Dawn of the Dead. I mean, just drug addicts, like as far as the eye could see. And I was just
there like 2 weeks ago. We were staying at this wicked nice Airbnb, and literally on the corner was Tent City under a bridge, like crazy.
This is what's nuts, okay? So I'm walking, so we had a day off before we played Stubbs, and I'm walking from the hotel to a coffee shop, and I'm going past all these bars that when I was drinking back in the day, I used to go to after the shows or whatever, and they're closed, and they have like on the outside like tents and stuff, and I'm on the way to the coffee shop. I'm seeing these guys kind of waking up and stuff. When I came back, there were dudes cleaning out like from the city that were coming in like a maid service, like going into where the person had his set, and he was just cleaning out the shit, the piss. Like it was like, I'm like, are they doing a maid? That's a so.
Unfortunately, it's a public health.
Well, of course issue. It is. Of course it is. You have to do it. But like let's. How about we have a bathroom where they can go to? So So I'm going to the show from the room, and like, you know, our buses are by where we would go in, and both corners are jammed with people like hanging out, getting ready for the show. I'm not like world famous or nothing like that, but near one of our shows, I'm going to get recognized. You know what I mean? Yeah, so I'm just trying to get to the bus, get on my stage gear so I can get in to do what I do, and without getting seen, kind of thing. Not like Menudo or anything, but I just want to just get into where. Yeah. So
no one wants to be hassled going to work. That's all.
So I walked. I didn't cross the crosswalk, and so I was just about to get to the bus, a flashlight was all of a sudden in my face, flickering. And I was like, what the and I look, and it's a cop. And I'm like, he walks up to me, he goes, sir, can you give me one good reason why you just jaywalked? Now, truth, I just spent the last 24 hours in this city stepping over people who looked, I shit you not, dead in the street, passed out. Like, I was like, I'm pretty sure that guy was dead.
Yeah.
And this guy was hassling me for jaywalking. And so I'm just like, I'm annoyed, right? And I just go, excuse me? He goes, I go, and I show him my laminate, and I go, I'm just trying to get in, and blah, blah, blah. He goes, it's not a good enough reason. And I go, oh, yeah? I go, well, how about this? I go, I'm a 51-year-old at the time, grown-ass adult who just crossed the street successfully by himself. have a good night. And I walked away from him. And he was just kind of like, but that's where that ended. But I just, again, it's just like, are you kidding me? Like you got people booting up over there and you're worried about me
jaywalking.
You know what I mean? Like, oh, am I just an easy mark or something? You know, like give me a break. But no, it's crazy what's happening right now. So all this, so this was happening before COVID. But here's the thing. So if COVID is so bad, and I'm not saying it isn't, and I'm not trying to disrespect anybody out there.
This is just questions.
These are just questions.
Thinking points.
Yeah, these are just thinking points. But what I notice is the amount of people living on the street that cannot wash their hands all the time and disinfect and stuff. There doesn't seem to be this pandemic with them. So that's kind of, again, just a question. A question. I'm not saying I know people that have gotten it. I know a friend of mine who was a tour manager who was one of the first cases of COVID out there, and she was young and she survived it, but she said that she swam like a mile every day, and she said that as a result of having it now, she can barely walk like a block without. And this was 3 months after she had recovered, or didn't have it anymore. So, it's no joke. I'm sure it's. I know that it's. But I am seeing more people survive it than not.
Yeah.
There are, and I'm seeing even the older people are recovering from it, is what I'm reading. So
and. The crazy thing is, if they're so concerned about our health, why are they only pushing the fear and the mask, and they're not pushing take vitamin C, take vitamin D, take zinc, all the shit that helps boost your immune system?
Yeah, exactly.
Or, the worst cases, a lot of times they find correlated with severe vitamin D deficiencies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Take some vitamin D. It ain't going to hurt you. You know what I mean? And it could help if you do get it,
And
but you don't see that.
And why is there such a continuous kind of mantra of just, it's just this mantras of just negativity. And then people wonder why they're negative all the time. And it's like, well, it's just this constant mantra of negativity. You are what you eat. You know what I mean? And so that's, you bathe in negativity, you're not going to be positive, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's just fear and obedience.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, and you said very well earlier, the things that make you more human or uplift you.
Yeah. They give you hope.
You can't do. Those are done.
Yeah, those are the things that would give you a break from that.
Yeah.
You don't even have that anymore.
No.
Hope has been taken out of the equation. That's the one thing that we need more than ever right now. And not just the hope that this is going to go away, or the hope that the election is going to go the way you want it to, or something like that. Like hope in the human spirit.
Yeah.
The hope that we're not going to let this fear rule us, and it is ruling us right now. And it's crazy. I mean, it's just, is it good to be aware and know what's going on? Absolutely. But as you said, when are we going to start getting the truth?
Yeah.
No pun intended.
Yeah, no. And
we're getting the truth right now.
Yeah. It's just fucking, the scary thing is, there should be suggestions, and there should be things that we should all do, and there should be all things that we're willing to do to help out further things. But when the government starts coming in and saying, no, you can't do this, or we're going to shut off your electricity, or if you have Thanksgiving dinner or whatever, or if you have too many family members at your house.
Yeah, and how are they going to gauge that, by the way?
You can't open your business, even though Walmart can stay open, even though 10 people come through your door, but thousands come through Walmart's door, they can stay open.
What's the difference?
Or who do you think is the biggest vector of transmission, the one where thousands of people walk through, or the small business that 10 people walk through?
I mean, it's just the same thing about I understand that there's things people want to protest right now. They do, and they're out there protesting, and I'm not saying they shouldn't be, but I don't see the media say what they say about that when they're like, oh, somebody had a party, or then a bunch of people went to the beach. The nerve of these people trying to go outside in fresh air, yet...
Even though they're saying, oh, COVID can't really survive well in the sunshine, or in the heat. And it's like,
Right.
yeah, the beach should be pretty fucking safe. You
Right.
know, like,
Yeah.
you know, I'm not saying fucking stack up on top of each other, but go get some fucking air, you know?
That's just it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fucking bananas, dude. But, you know.
What are you going to do? What are you gonna do? We need to bring music back. I think music is the only thing that's going to save us at this point. We're, you know, you asked a while ago, like, I mean, we're hopefully going to, as far as Dropkick goes, I know we're bringing out something for this Christmas, a couple numbers, and just for Christmas, and then we're talking about finally putting out the new record, which we had been kind of teasing with some singles before this whole thing started. And we've recorded a lot of stuff. We just haven't released it yet, but there's stuff we have to finish now. But
Can you get in the studio?
Well, that's just it. It's like, you know, that was it. You know, I'm doing the stuff that I'm going to do. I'm going to do locally in Portsmouth with Dean, who was in 454 and Wrecking Crew, and, you know, had a studio with Matt from Matt Ball back in the day. You know, we're hopefully gonna do that. But, you know, again, it's like, who's gonna buy it? Who's gonna, you know, how we can't even go on tour to promote it. You know, these days nobody's buying music anymore anyways. You know, so it's, you know, I mean, really the only way bands are making any money is, you know, public appearance, you know what I mean?
Touring and merch,
touring and merch, and that's been taken from us. So, you know, and I think about, you know, I mean, all the venues that aren't going to come back. I think about sometimes about some of the bands that may not come back.
Yeah.
You know, because
absolutely.
they're, you know, I mean.
Just look at Boston now, man. Like, Middle East is up for sale.
Is it? I didn't know that.
You didn't know? Oh, yeah. If we lose the Middle East, that's like.
That's huge. That's huge. That's huge. I mean, that's what I'm talking about, too, because the lifeblood of any city are the local bands.
Yeah.
You don't get international bands because the international bands were once local bands.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. They worked their way up the ladder, the rung,
Exactly. So you take that ladder out, what happens then?
Yeah.
What happens then?
We were talking about Babyhead before this. Like, I saw Smashing Pumpkins on that stage, and I saw, you know, Bruisers on that stage, and I saw fucking, you know, The Worst on that stage, or I saw a band that you never even heard of that played 5 shows, and I saw them on that stage. You know, and it's like, you know,
it's just like you said, you know, what happens next? You know, where do these bands go? That's the thing, you know, and what happens to these mid-level bands that literally counted on touring and merch, and now, you know, it's like, I mean, it's crazy, man. I mean, we're just hopefully 2021 will open back up again and we'll be able to go back out there, but realistically, until they have a vaccine, which I'm not going to take, it's not going to open. They're not going to let us on tour buses again. It's just not.
It's crazy, yeah. And you know, and it just goes like, you know, beyond entertainment. I don't know what the newest numbers, but the last time I looked, they were like 25% of all small businesses in the U.S. are permanently out of business.
Yeah, I think it's closer to 40% now.
Yeah, they're projecting 50.
Yeah.
So think about that for a minute. Now, again, no disrespect to anyone who had any loss due to COVID. Almost half of every American small business is no longer in business.
Exactly.
And really wrap your head arout it. Like, that's fucking bananas,
you can't even think of, you can't even think about it. Like you just said, think about, that's staggering to think about. That's staggering. That's literally, so, you know, I remember going into these like Pennsylvania towns back when we were touring. We did this tour with The Offspring a few years ago, and we did some off dates, you know, because they were doing the tour and we were playing the shows with them, but then we would have an off day and we, you know, we're working band, so we're playing a show. And I remember being in, it was a venue outside of Philly, but not like in Pennsylvania, like you know, out there, and like
Lancaster or some shit.
As a matter of fact, it may have been Lancaster. But I just remember looking out the bus window, getting ready to go out and try to find a coffee shop It was a Monday, and it looked like a Sunday.
Yeah.
I mean, this is easily 15 years ago. So my point is, the economy in a lot of these towns and in the Midwest and sort of already struggling so badly. And you think about it, and then some of these places had some booms, like Asheville. Like I remember being in Asheville and doing a show there. We had a day off, and I was like, God, what a great little town Asheville is. This great, great little town. Actually, Scotty from the Bruisers just had to move from San Francisco. So he had a bike shop for almost 20 years in SF. He lost everything.
Yeah.
Had to get the hell out of San Francisco in California. And then now his sister lives in North Carolina. So he went and stayed with her. She lives in like a dry county. It's like years ago we visited her, and it was back when I was still drinking. And I remember we wanted some beers, and she didn't have any, and we're like, well, we'll just go out to the store. She goes, you're gonna have to drive 10 miles. We're like, but there's a store that's a dry county. We're like, a dry what?
Yeah, yeah.
We didn't know what that was. Anyways.
Yeah, it's crazy once you get out of like the main areas.
Yeah. But speaking back to the point, but it's, I mean, how are we going to, especially if we end up having to go back and do another lockdown. And I'm not saying that isn't necessary. I'm not saying that it is. The death numbers just don't, you know what I mean? Like everybody keeps saying these numbers, and they keep, not everybody, but you keep hearing these like, 240,000 now or something like that. And but I was reading the CDC page, and, it says right in it, like the actual number of people that have died from just COVID is actually like less than 10,000. Like,
yeah.
Like it's
all those.
Again, I'm not saying, and I'm not trying to, it's just like saying this stuff is like people can get so triggered by this stuff, but I am literally just repeating what I read.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to say anything. I'm just saying, listen.
The perspective, though, being in a country of hundreds of millions.
300 plus million.
380 something million, yeah.
10,000
is, and I'm not justifying that, but look, people
speaking
died.
Speaking at it from a point of that. So here's something that I wanted to say.
Yeah.
So, and I was saying this pre starting recording, but I'm just going to say it like this. I have a relative who is a retired head of FEMA. He told me about a month ago, Toots and the Maytals, when Toots died, I called him up because he actually played Toots when I was like 8 or 9 years old. I heard Toots. Because my Uncle Ken brought Toots, from the Caribbean, music that, it's Jamaican, but, he'd gotten it down in the Caribbean.
Sure.
Anyways, I was calling to thank him for playing Toots, and introducing me to Toots. And, my wife and I were the biggest Toots fans, still are, and we're so heartbroken when he died. And we ended up speaking a little bit about what was happening in the country. Now, as I said, he was retired head of FEMA. So he was in his job when H1N1 hit America. He said to me, he was very, and this is he doesn't mince his words, and he's one of the nicest people I know. He said to me emphatically, he said, Alex, I can tell you with H1N1, we did everything wrong. 80 million people got, let me say that again, 80 million people got H1N1. And the only reason why there weren't 80 million deaths was because it wasn't as bad as they thought it was going to be. But nobody blamed the administration at the time. See, that's the thing. It's like, again, I'm not trying to say I back the current administration, not saying I back the other administration, not saying I back any administration. I'm a punk rock, fuck authority, fuck the government. But I will say this, how do you blame air on somebody? It just does. Can we get back to making sense? Can we get back to making sense? Because I can understand that leaders make mistakes and leaders do this and leaders do that. But at the end of the day, we haven't been in any new wars. You know what I mean? Like, you know what's been the constant before this current administration? War. war, you know? And there's a lot of things that just don't get talked about. It's like, I think it's kind of a big deal that we're not in a new war. But again, it's like, I don't want to start coming off like I'm supporting anybody, because I'm not. I'm really not. I'm really disappointed with America, because we had 4 years to come up with somebody good, and we didn't.
Yeah.
And we didn't. And that's really disappointing.
Absolutely. And the fact that you have to emphatically, and I got to do it too, is hey, I'm saying this with the caveat that I'm not supporting anybody, because people are so quick to jump. I said this on, I don't know if this was a private conversation or I think it was on a podcast, that, you know, a lot of the blame for all this bullshit is us.
Yeah.
The American people.
Yeah.
Because we let this fucking shit show slide.
Yeah.
Like, whether it's because we're overworked and, you know, you got families where both parents are working 1 or 2 jobs or whatever it is, you know, or people are just apathetic, or we're getting lied to from news, you know.
Fear will make people do. I mean, look,
crazy
go
shit.
back
That
to
too,
go
yes.
back to 9/11. Look what happened at 9/11, and look what we were willing to give up in the name of freedom and being protected. You know what I mean?
And that's, if you don't think the government takes advantage of a situation like that, go read the Patriot Act. Anybody go read that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that is the most unpatriotic piece of legislation to ever be put through.
They love calling things what they aren't.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Crazy, a crazy, I just forgot the word I was going to use, but a crazy growth of government power and overreach.
It's unreal. It's unreal. And
exponential was the word I was looking for.
There you go. And you can't, and this is the thing that's important. To think that it's a coincidence is really naive. Like, to think that this wasn't planned to some degree is really naive. And I think, and I'm not saying they planned COVID. I'm just saying that the way this is all falling together, it's just a little too scripted.
Yeah, and whether it's scripted or whether it's like, oh, this is what we needed to put this shit forth. And it was just taking advantage of the opportunity.
What does that have to do with keeping us off stages?
Yeah.
What does that have to do with that? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like what does it have to do with keeping people out of church? What does it have to do, or their synagogue or mosque? You know, what does it have to do with stopping people from connecting?
Yep.
From getting love and hope?
Yeah.
What is going on? And why do we have to constantly say, but I'm not saying this, I'm not saying that? Why can't you just listen to this podcast and realize neither of us support any of these fuckers? No. We just want to fucking get back to what it was, because we're losing something. And for people to be willing to go into whatever the new this or new that is going to look like, fuck that.
I don't want no new normal.
No normal, fuck that. That offends me. New normal? No.
Absolutely.
No.
I was fine. Well, I wasn't fine with the old one either, but you know what I mean? Like, you know, obviously there's always going to be issues going on, but, you know, the problem is, the scary thing is what we kind of glossed over before, is that kids are getting indoctrinated into this.
Yeah.
So if they grow up with this being the thing, what's the next shit that's going to get taken that is going to offend them when so much has already been gone? You know, what else can they come for? You know,
the feathers are being plucked at a quicker rate than before, and nobody is noticing that it's getting colder in here. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, listen, if you think that, like, I mean, imagine being alive in 1939 in Germany, okay, and what happened there. You know, I mean, my grandfather fought in World War II in the German army. He was in SS. He was a second Oberleutnant, maybe a second lieutenant or something is what he ended up being. He was sent to the Russian front, did 5 years in Russian prison camp, was one of the 8,000 of the 100,000 that were put in the camps. He was one of the 8,000 that came home. What a horrific tale he told of the Eastern Front and the time then. But you think about what was going on in the world at the time. The world was in this depression, and nobody seemed to be able to get it. And then you had this power, you know, rising. You know, World War I was over. Germany had been cut up by, and you have to understand, World War I wasn't like World War II. So World War I was, you know, literally, you know, there was this assassination of of a royal, Sophia and Ferdinand. You know, this assassination happened. People sided up on either side. They went to war. There wasn't this like Germany ended up being like the main aggressor in World War I, but it wasn't being fought. There wasn't the Nazi Party. There wasn't, there weren't death camps. There weren't. I mean, that's not to say that World War I wasn't the worst war ever probably fought, because you didn't have the Geneva Convention yet. You didn't have.
It was brutal.
It was brutal beyond.
But it
brutal.
wasn't backed by a philosophy or an ideal
that was going after people for being a certain religion and what they called a race or whatever. Yeah, I mean, so but what Hitler was able to do was take people that. He saw, his genius was that he saw his way in. He saw a downtrodden people. And he started talking about, are we going to take this? Are we going to take this? Well, you're from Austria, aren't you? No. But, are we going to take, they took, so the Tsars, or whatever, whoever the Prussian leader was in World War I, basically what happened is they cut Germany up, and then they just gave huge swathes of land to kind of punish, the losers. So his spear that he drove to kind of bring Germany back was that, you know what I mean? And then he had these ideas like the Autobahn, the highway, and the Volkswagen, the people's car, and he had all these. He had this. Trying out a gun in the back.
Yeah.
But you could be.
It was like so perfectly timed.
Right, yeah. But so I mean, my point I'm trying to make is, can you imagine being around back then and what was going on in the world at the time? I always wonder if it looked a little bit about what's happening right now in a different sense, but in terms of the fear. In terms of what's happening in the fear, and in terms of how people are so willing to take a knee to certain things, but then attack someone who they perceive not going along with the majority of the narrative, and not seeing value in critical thinking. Like, that's the other thing too, is like there is this leap immediately, if like you just said, of anybody who questions anything, well, then immediately you get thrown in the pile of the
enemy, the opposing side.
Yeah, whatever that side is. So, and it goes with it goes
both ways.
Both ways, exactly. So,
but not being able to sit at, and I'm not just saying the bar, but whatever, like not being able to sit at the bar and talk shit out with somebody, you don't know. All you see is, you're online and people are arguing online, and that's disembodied. And,
and we all know about online, because everybody's a tough guy online. And everybody's everybody's,
Or you don't have to talk to people you don't agree to, because you can just join the message board that is the thing that you're into. Yeah, it's a big echo chamber.
Exactly.
And so you don't even learn how to talk to other people or how to have a conversation anymore. Everything's just a fight. It's crazy, man.
No,
I just wonder what's going to happen when the whole middle class is decimated. Or not the whole, but like a.
Well, decimated just means destroyed by, reduced by 10, but destroyed.
Oh, yeah. Destroyed,
Destroyed is more like it.
Yeah, because it's already...
It's already been decimated, probably.
Yeah, decimated many times over. Yeah. But destroyed with if it's already 40% of businesses, or say just to be even safer, 35%, most small businesses are middle class. It's not,
absolutely.
And it's like... what the fuck are they going to do? It's
well, that's just it. And so here is conspiracy theory number 3,212.
Yeah.
But I will say this. You have these ideas out there like the Green New Deal and things like that. One thing I will say is, if they destroy the economy the way that it's destroyed, and then they go into a second lockdown and really stomp it out, you know what I mean? That fire ain't coming back no matter what. They dump the water on it now, you know what I mean? So wouldn't that be a perfect time to then shove that down the throat of the people that are already so beaten down? You know what I mean? Like I don't. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. Nobody does, right? Yeah, well, that's not true. Someone knows what's going to happen because this is being driven. This isn't a coincidence. This is being driven. This is being driven. I'm not saying it's not real. It is real, but there is fear. No one is leading with love and hope. It's all fear.
Yeah,
it's all fear. There is nobody out there that. And here's the thing. The two choices they've given us to put at the front of the ship, it's not instilling confidence in. So you have people that believe in one and people that believe in the other, but those two sides don't believe in each other, and that's the problem. So we're never going to get anywhere.
Not only that, but people on both sides. I know people that are Democrats. I know both people that are Republicans. A lot of people on either side aren't for the candidate for their party.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
They literally.
They're just voting like, oh, at least it's not Trump or at least it's not Biden.
Exactly.
Or Harris.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
Biden, whatever.
Well, did you see her introduction she got the other day?
No, I didn't see that.
She got an introduction. Let me just play it right live right now on your.
I don't know. Can I play that?
Well,
what was it on?
Well, it's just a soundbite from a news thing, isn't
Okay,
it? So
yeah.
I mean.
I was there. I stood up, and I was counted. Without further delay, I am so honored to introduce the next president of the United States, Senator Kamala Harris.
Wow.
I mean, they don't seem to be even hiding it anymore.
What was that from?
That was her doing some campaign stop.
Okay.
Somewhere out west. I think it may have been Texas.
But how does that not make any news?
Yeah, it was on Twitter. I saw it on Twitter. Exactly. How does that gaffe wait, that wasn't even a gaffe. They're not even trying to hide it. So like I said, so if you're, like I said, so you're talking about somebody who, in my opinion, is, like I'd rather swallow a bag of tacks than spend any time with someone as disingenuous as that. Because she's a disingenuous person. Come on. Yeah. She actually said that she listened to people that weren't even alive when she said she was in frickin' or definitely weren't making music when she was in school. She was.
It doesn't take a lot of digging to find legitimate dirt on her. So
and there's dirt on all of them.
All
That's
of them,
the thing.
yeah, absolutely,
Like let's not be selective in our dirt throwing because
no, I'm not.
No, I'm not saying you are, but that's just it. As soon as you say that, immediately people are like, "Well, you must be riding in the other car." It's like, no man, dude. I'm walking down the street.
I think the takeaway from this is that neither of us have any answers, but we have questions.
Yeah,
and it's important to have questions.
And let's not pre-assume what somebody means when they're asking a question. Because if we can't critical think anymore, if critical thinking becomes illegal, then we're in trouble.
Yeah,
then we're in trouble. If we're going to start to suppress critical thinking, we're in trouble.
That's where the book burnings and all that shit comes in. Oh, yeah. We'll hold on one sec. All right, we're back. We had to take a urination break.
Yeah.
But we're back. But Johnny Rio had hit me up.
Johnny.
And he said he gave me 3 words to throw out at you and said it would result in a funny story. Fanny pack, bag of weed, and movie theater.
Oh, my God. Jesus H. Christ. So, yeah. That's funny. We could talk about that, or we could talk about the time I cock-blocked Johnny Rio when he was... No, I'm kidding. Just kidding, Johnny. I won't tell that story, will I, huh? You should see Johnny swing dance with his wife. So when Johnny was married, he was divorced already, and we were on tour with the Bruisers, and... we were doing some weekend shows down at Long Island with the Bouncing Souls, and he met this girl who was this hot rockabilly chick that he was all about, and she was all about him too. Johnny was a good-looking guy. He still is. Anyway, so Johnny's doing some, swing dancing with her. They're, flipping her over his back. Johnny had moves. He could dance. Who knew, right? And so, I innocently walked up and said, yeah, you should see Johnny swing dance with his wife. I didn't say ex, I just said wife, and so that killed the deal for him. But so I was on tour with the Dropkick Murphys back in probably '99. Johnny had just been fired from Mike Ness because he tried to fight the drummer. Because this guy was he's passed away, so I don't want to say his name or anything. But anyways, Johnny got the gig, practiced a bunch with Mike. And then got in a fight with the drummer, and Mike had a date already to do, and this guy was a prick basically to Johnny, and Johnny called him out, and then Mike got there and was like, "What's the beef?" And this guy, who was an industry guy, had played for a lot of big time bands, said, "Either I go or he goes," and Johnny was the low man on the totem. So what was funny was Johnny immediately started teching for us, Dropkick Murphys, and I was with him when he got the call because they had already fired that drummer because he was such a cocksucker. And Mike immediately wanted Johnny back. Mike was really good to Johnny, by the way. He gave him like 2 weeks' salary, and like he was really good to him. So that was nice to hear that Mike was like that. I've since met Mike, and he's a good dude. But in any event, so. We used to tour in a can of Pringles on wheels, also known as an RV. But Rick Barton used to say, "This is a can of Pringles on wheels. We're all gonna die." And sometimes when the wind blew, it did feel like that.
Yeah, sure.
So we were somewhere in the Midwest. And I had this, I got this, I don't wear it like a fanny pack, but it's like a man purse because I got a lot of stuff I carry around, you know what I mean? Whatever, I'm 52 years old. I need some things, that make me feel all right. I got my mascara and my tampons and stuff in there. And anyway, so I've always had these, Johnny likes to call them fanny packs. I stopped wearing them on my fanny in the 90s. I realized that wasn't cool, but I just couldn't let go of them. And they're very convenient. And it's not a purse. It's a bag. It's anyway. So we went to the movies on a day off, and I'd like to smoke the happy stick. Back in the days, Rick Barton, you're getting the happy weed, you're smoking the happy weed. And so I like to smoke back then. And anyways, I left my bag, my fanny pack with the weed and all my money, which wasn't all that much, but it was all I had at the time, in the movie theater. And it was the last show of the night, and we were staying at some hotel down the road. So I don't know if you know John Scholes, but he's like, so John Scholes was driving for us back then, right? So John Scholes actually, he's like, Jesus, Al, what we'll do is you and I will just drive the RV, and we'll just wait till, it looks like somebody's going in to clean, and we'll just see if we can go in and get the fanny pack. And so like John Scholes and I posted up by this mall, and and he's, John's like taking naps and stuff. I'm just like, I'm in the front seat because I want my shit back. This is not cool.
It's everything.
And so I see somebody walking around inside the mall. So I run up and I'm banging on the window, and I'm like that. And the dude sees me, and he immediately hides behind a column. And I'm like, that's weird. So I'm like, and I go back to the RV. I'm like, I saw a cleaning guy, but he just pretended like he didn't see me. Then he hid behind the column, which is weird. So we continued to kind of see activity going on there, but we can't seem to get anybody's attention. And then about 5:30, 4:30, maybe in the morning, this security detail comes through, and I get out. I'm like, hey, and the guy's like startled. He's like, what are you? I'm like, I tell him the story, omitting the fact that there's a bag of weed inside the bag, and I'm like, there's been people in there all night. I've been trying to get in touch. He goes, what are you talking about? And I'm like, well, they're a cleaning crew or something. He goes, there's no cleaning crews in there. I go, well, there were people in there. He goes, we have a break-in, blah, blah, blah. So John and I had actually witnessed a break-in. There were actually people robbing the mall. And so when I went up and knocked on the door thinking it was a cleaning guy, it was a guy robbing the place. So I was blowing up this scene. I didn't call anybody. I just fucking, but anyways, so in all the confusion, the guy just let me in to the movie theater. I went right to where I was sitting, and there was my bag under the seat. I got it back. Thank you, Johnny. But yeah, there's a lot better stories than that, though. Yeah. But I'm surprised that was all he had. That was probably because it got him out of. Let's go to 1997 Vanilla Muffins tour. Old Johnny was 3 sheets to the wind, and he had met his Fräulein for what I thought was what he thought was a conceivable future. He had met his girl of his dreams, and he was single at the time, so it wasn't like he was screwing anybody over. And she was driving the moped. He was on the back of the moped. I think we were in Berlin, Germany, actually, and he's like, I'll see you tomorrow. And I was like, no, you will not. You get off that moped right now, and you get in the van. What are we going to tell Marilyn when we can't find her father the next day? And I poured it on thick because he only had one kid at the time, and I invoked her name and everything. And I actually convinced, he was so upset with me because it was just like he had fallen in love in his head, and he was just like, come on, man, like you're killing me here. I'll be fine. And I just convinced him that if he didn't get back in the van and stay in the bubble, that something bad was going to happen. And anyways, he never forgave me for that.
So he stayed in the bubble?
He stayed in the bubble. He did some single activity that evening, I'm sure. But yeah.
Johnny Rio, the boy in the bubble.
Johnny Rio. Yeah.
Cool. But what shit, man, we just talked about I'm literally just fucked up from the offline conversation we had again. So people just know, there's a lot of shit going on in the world, and just pay attention and fucking ask questions. It's more important now than ever, man. There's just a lot of fucking craziness going on, and there's a lot of shit we don't need to talk about on here, but just do research and be informed. Be informed.
Don't take what you see. Don't take what you see as being necessarily because what they want you to see and what actually is happening are probably two different things. And I'm by no means sitting here thinking I got any answers at all. No. But don't blindly trust.
Yeah. You know enough to know that there's some shuck and jive going on, whether you don't know exactly what the shuck and jive is, but there's some shuck and jive.
We're in one of the most contentious, probably the most contentious election that this country's ever had. And we're probably more divided than we've ever been as a country. So I think everybody, if you're a parent, especially I'm a parent, I need to remind myself of that right now, and I need to lead with love and hope, because my kids are looking at me. I got an 8-year-old, an 11-year-old, and an almost 17-year-old, and I have to realize that the way that I'm filtering the world, shit rolls downhill, and so they see me, freaking out about something that ends up rubbing off, especially on children. So, if you're out there and you're, one of these people that just gets so wrapped up in fear and everything, just realize that affects everybody around you too. And fear ain't nowhere to live, I mean, you got to just you got to just realize, that there really is nothing to fear but fear itself. And that FDR was right about that.
Yeah.
He wasn't right about the camps. He was right about that.
Yeah. And everyone fucking dies. Everyone dies of something. So you can't be worried about that shit, man. And
this is true.
You know what I mean? Fucking so music.
And what do you want him to say when you're dead too? So remember that. What do you want him to say when you're gone?
Absolutely.
You want him to remember a guy who was on his knees, or you want to remember a person who stood his ground and said what he thought? Punk rock, critical thinking. Come on.
That's right. Question authority. Yeah. But yeah, man. So musically, what do you? Anything coming up? I mean, I know. Not talking about your band, but has there been anything new musically that you've been excited about?
I have not really been paying that much attention to, I listen to what I listen to, and I'm one of those people who's just like, I like what I like, but, I will say this, the guy sitting to my left, Sean Ahern, a.k.a. Billy Moonbeam, he's got some exciting stuff that's going to be coming out in the next few months. I'm looking forward to that.
And check out the Billy Moonbeam show on YouTube.
Yeah, definitely.
There's
check
a couple
out
episodes. We'll have some more coming as time allots.
And I think music-wise, I know that my other thing I was involved in the 80s and 90s, the Bruisers. I know that I stood on the stage in Boston and Providence and said, we're done, we're not doing any more shows. But then reflecting upon that decision, I realized that Europe really got the short end of the stick, and I posted that recently on the Bruisers IG page. That's the Bruisers. I just think we got to go back to and do at least one show in Europe. And as usual, everybody's like, oh, well, if you're going to do that, then you can do this, and it's going to be one show only. I already got the guy I'm going to do it with. I already know where we're going to do it. It's already done. And I was a fool last time. I got caught up in a guy who was telling me what I thought I wanted to hear, and it was a bunch of horse shit. And as a result, the Bruisers didn't play, and the people that wanted to see us didn't get to see us. So I want to make up for that. And so we're going to go and do something when this is over.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I'm not saying next year. I'm not saying, I don't know when it's, I don't know
when you're allowed, when venues are open.
When we get caught up with my mainstay, which is obviously the Dropkicks. And, we'll see when it happens. But my intention is to do one more show in Europe. And it's not going to be multiples. It's not going to be tours. It's not going to be this. It's people they love it. So well, then you can come back and you never played here. And there's always going to be places we never play because the truth of the matter is we just didn't have the touring mechanisms that are I didn't have the people that even wanted that could devote themselves to that because people got to pay rent.
It was a lot, and I feel like, and I'm not saying it's easier now, but in a way, I'm saying. Touring in the late 80s was a different game.
It's easier in the sense that if you want to get the word out about yourself, self-promotion with all the social media and everything, and if you have a friend who's got, 200 more followers, there's way easier ways. Flyers, you kidding me?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's just getting the word out about a show. It's like...
but imagine being a local band and then trying to book a tour in the 80s. You had to do it by mail or by phone.
Everything was phone. You
couldn't email. There's no text.
No,
you couldn't just Google how to get in touch with somebody.
You were setting up tours. I remember. You'd have to call if there were 6 places you were playing. There was probably 12 people you had to call.
Yeah.
The 6 people that were booking it, and the 6 people, the places you were hopefully crashing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you have to get the Maximum Rock and Roll Book Your Life. Book.
That's just it. Yeah, and it's funny too because I was watching Sal Ellington there, a friend of mine. He's got a band called Rebuilder out of Boston, and he's worked for both Bosstones and for Dropkicks before, and he's a funny cat. He's got a show called The Biz, and I was watching a little bit of that the other day, and he was talking. I don't know what the name of the other guy that does the show with him is, but they were talking about these bands that call them up and want to do shows in Boston, and they're like, yeah, well, we need $1,000, and and it's just funny when you hear that, because people are like, yeah, I need, because if you don't have an agent, have a manager, if you don't have a fan base, you have no business asking for $1,000.
Yeah.
Because everybody would like $1,000. Sean, would you like $1,000?
Yeah.
Truth, you want $1,000, right? Yeah, $1,000 would be great. Unfortunately,
you get War Machine for $1,000. That's for sure.
You know what I mean? Yeah, right. You know what I mean? So, yeah, but who's got $1,000? We did an entire Warped Tour where we got paid. 98 Warped Tour, we traded with this band called The Smooths for main stage in Northampton. And they gave us, we had main, because they used to trade it around. You'd get main stage one day and then side stage another day. So it came up in the lottery that we would have the main stage in Buffalo, but side stage in Boston. The Smooths, I forget where they were from, but they didn't care either way. So we asked them, and so they took the main stage in Buffalo, and we got the main stage in Boston, and that was 98. And Kevin Lyman, who owned and ran the Warped Tour, saw that, and we had 10,000 people in front of the stage. I've got a black and white photo somewhere of Rick and Ken and I in the front, and it's just a sea of people. I mean, that was another moment where afterwards I could have died. I had my parents on stage. My father, God rest his soul, was standing there, and that was the first time that he'd ever seen us play for that many people. You know what I mean? And when I got off stage, he gave me this hug. You know what I mean? You know, and he was so proud. Like there was just anyways, taking back my memory there for a minute. But anyways, so Kevin Lyman saw that, and he offered us the whole tour the next year. He said, I'd like to offer you, I mean, back then, if you could set up a record release and do Warped Tour, that would do wonders for you.
Sure,
I mean, because you were hitting such a cross-section of people, because Warped Tour was cool still back then, you know what I mean? And when I say cool, it got, the genres of music were eclectic enough so everybody was coming. There wasn't just, hey, is that the same singer that was on the last, you know what I mean? That singer must be tired because he's singing for everybody. You know what I mean? Like it got like that. It got stale, and it lost its mystique. It lost its charm, in my opinion. Everything kind of does after a while, but it was too bad to see it happen in Warped Tour, because Warped Tour really helped bands that were, you know, not big, not, you know, I mean, it got, you know, so anyways, my point in saying that is, like, I remember he offered us that tour. We got paid, and when I say this, we got paid $200 a day. And people are like, wow, well, that's cool, right? I'm like, yeah, of course it's cool. It's $200 a day. We were driving the Warped Tour. Like, $200 a day doesn't even fill your gas tank. You're driving literally, you know, you may be doing 1,200 miles to the next gig. You think $200 in gas is gonna, you know what I'm saying? It ain't gonna happen. It's summertime. Gas prices go up anyways. So the point I'm trying to make is, we still did that tour, and we were grateful and happy for that $200. You know what I mean? It's like, it's so the bands that are out there that, you know, when I hear of this, oh, we need this and we need that, it's like, you know, everybody needs something. You know, what we need is gigs. You know what I mean? What we need is a good tour. We would have done that tour for $80 a day. You know, I mean, truth be told, we would have probably done for nothing. Because that did more for our career at the time than anything else did.
Sure, absolutely. Because it
put us out in front of so many people. You know what I mean? And so, you know, and when you say, well, what do you mean? Quantify that. So, okay, so with Gangs All Here, I'm the Rain Man guy. You can ask me anything when it comes to numbers. We did 7,000. I'm sorry, no, I'm misspeaking. We did, so if Do or Die did 7, we did 30, we did almost 4,000 with Gangs All Here the first week. With Sing Loud, Sing Proud, we did 10,000 the first week. That was enormous at the time. In 2000, when that came out, holy shit, we just cracked the nut. We did 10 grand in the first week. We couldn't believe it. You know what I mean? Every record grew. With every release, we saw each record growing well. Sure. You know, and I believe the Warped Tour had a lot to do with that. I really do. I feel like
it's across the country. It put you out to whole realms of people.
Exactly, and we got, you know, but touring. When people ask me, how do you think? You know, was it the songs and movies? Was this what got you? Yeah, the songs and the movies brought us to a mainstream audience, brought us to more of this, to, you know, people that wouldn't normally have known who we were. But touring is what you have to do as a band, or what we had to do in order to, like, we're at a level now that we were never at before. if we hadn't toured, we wouldn't be. It's
Sure.
because we were not a radio hit band. We're not even a band that people buy our records to listen. It's they buy our records because they saw us.
Yeah.
I always tell people it's our live show that sells the band because we pour everything into that. You know what I mean? And I hear from people all the time. It doesn't matter if you're a fan of their music, you'll be entertained when you see the Dropkick Murphys.
Yeah, and that's what you want. That's why you go see a band.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
not because you like the records and you go see the band and it sucks.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
you can win more people over by putting on a good show.
Well,
and even if you're in not the headlining band, a lot of times you can overshadow the headlining band if they're at that point where they don't give a fuck anymore.
Well, that's just it. Is you attack everything like it was. It's. I mean, when Terry O'Reilly came to one of our shows, which was a big deal, and he was the coach for the Rangers. After he saw our show, he actually went back into his locker room the next day and talked about seeing us and how we attacked the stage. And he was using us as an analogy. He's like, I want you guys to attack the ice the way the band I saw last night attacks the stage.
That's cool.
To hear something like that is really cool, obviously. But yeah, I mean, I think our ethos in the band has always been, if you're going to die on stage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we give it all when we're up there. It's like, we're having fun when we're up there. Now our dynamic has changed a bit in the sense that Kenny doesn't play the bass anymore. In 2018, I lost my father suddenly to cancer. I had a really close relationship with my father. It fucked me up. I'm still pretty fucked up about it.
I can imagine.
And at the time, we were locked into this tour with Flog and Molly, and it was a huge co-headlining tour. We had pre-sold so many thousands of tickets already, and then my father died suddenly, and I didn't know if I could do it.
Sure.
There's the first time in my life where it wasn't. I don't identify it so much as stage fright. It's just I couldn't. When I get on stage, something happens to me. There's something comes into me. I welcome it. It drives me through what I do up there, and then I go back to just being me. It's just what happens. You know what I mean? It's part of. I guess it's the performer in me. Whatever. You know what I mean? Because people always like, what do you mean performing? It's like when you're doing shows consecutively and you're singing songs you believe in and you want to give your all, you're getting into character. It's like it is performing. You are getting into character, but it's genuine because you're believing what you're doing. It's not like you're faking it. But it is you're definitely channeling that character when you get on stage. But people are paying good money, so you should be giving them the best show you can.
Sure.
So, I guess the point I'm trying to make is, we all individually approach that like that. So for the first time when my father died, I didn't know if I could do that. At the same time, Kenny had this neck surgery where he was prohibited from holding a bass for 6 months to a year. And so his thing was he was just going to be out there with me with a mic, which ended up helping me confidence-wise because it got my mind off of the morose depression I was in losing my father. And suddenly I was out there with Kenny and we were shucking and jiving and ripping on each other and high-fiving each other and just having a fucking blast.
Yeah.
And we came away from it we didn't lose anything. We actually made something without changing anything. So we changed something in terms of Kenny's not playing the bass anymore, but what ended up happening, because nothing's changed musically, you know what I mean? It's not like we're playing disco now or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So how do you take a band that's almost 25 years old and
Do something
that's, that's going to change it, but not make the fans fucking go, oh, that sucked. We didn't hear one complaint. We didn't hear anything. My ego 10 years ago probably would have never fucking allowed that to happen because I was too up my own ass. Now I'm like, you know what I mean? Now I'm just like, life just continues to teach me. So if I'm not open to that, then what the fuck am I doing here?
Sure, yeah.
So I just looked at it as this is another this is another part of the journey, a part of the story. And I actually asked Kenny to stay. When people started saying, okay, you need to put the bass back on, I said, no, I'd like you to stay out there with me. And he was like, really? I was like, yeah, because we've done something that no band can do that's been around as long as us. We've changed something, extremely changed it, but we haven't changed anything.
Yeah.
So we've made the shows more exciting, but it's still the Dropkick Murphys.
Yeah.
So people just love it. They fucking love it. You know what I mean? And like I said, the old ego, like I said, when I had to be the lead, you know, because it's like everybody gets into their position and that's my position. And you know what I mean? It's like some people might think, oh, you know, I even read a review in one of the bigger punk online things where they're like, Al Barr's going to quit in this second now that Kenny's out there with him, you know, stepping all over him, and he wasn't stepping on, but that's the perception is like, what's going on here? He's usurping the singer, and it's like, no. First of all, if you know anything about the band, you know Kenny always sung. Yeah. We always had that kind of rancid, you know, call response.
Yeah.
You know that rancid has. You know, one guy said when they.
I think that makes things more sonically interesting.
It totally does, right? It's like I thought. That was like, and that's what I liked about the last record we did, 11 Short Stories in Pain and Glory, that we brought that back a bit. And, you know, we got this new producer, Ted Hutt, who's awesome, but he started getting Ken and I to sing together on everything. So it was like two voices making one voice. And I was like, that's cool and all, but let's bring back the call response thing because that, like you just said, it makes it interesting. It's like it just keeps things moving.
Sure.
And I find it interesting to listen to when you have that. I love that about Rancid. You know?
Yeah. And plus, vocally, it gives you a chance to catch your breath for a second. You know what I mean? And you can come in hard. You know what I mean? Like when you got to come in.
Yes.
We're all getting older, you know, and you got one vocal cord. So
he's giving secrets away. Industry secrets are being given away.
Hey, I got a question.
What are you talking about?
Going back to the one vocal cord thing, the guy that you saw that was top of the food chain.
Yeah, Zytels.
Like, what the fuck is that? And I hope you got some other plan. Have you ever sent him like a copy of like a record or something?
So the best part about that whole story, and because I always sideline myself, I didn't finish it, but it's an important part of the story. So I left that office feeling like I should probably take that long walk in the woods or step up on a chair and not ever step down again.
Yeah.
And then I told you I had that moment of clarity where I said, fuck it. You know what? No one's coming in grading my singing and stuff. That year, my wife gave birth on December 7th, 2008. My wife gave birth to our daughter, Harlow Jane. Very happy day, obviously.
Sure.
I left York Hospital to run home just to get some things. My mother-in-law, Sheila, was with our oldest boy at the time, was only 5, Strummer. So Sheila's home with Strummer, and I just ran home to get something, and I was in the kitchen. I was just getting some things for Jess, my wife, and I was in the kitchen, and my phone rings. And when we did the Warriors Code, I worked with this guy, Rick Poulin, in Boston, a vocal coach who owns 10 recording studios across from Boston Berklee School of Music and was in the band that became Boston. And he's an old school guy, rare, very, very knowledgeable about vocals, and at that point, I hadn't been diagnosed yet, but he was able to get this frickin' old war wagon inside my throat to work well. In any event, it's 3 years. I haven't worked with Rick, but Rick and I have kept in touch. Every year he would come see me at St. Patrick's Day and with some of the people from his school. And anyways, so my phone rings and it's Rick Poulin. And he's like, Al. And I'm like, Rick, hey. I go, what? This is funny. He goes, what? What do you mean? Oh, well, I go, I'm literally just back from the hospital. My wife has just given birth to our second child. You know, we had a girl. And he's like, oh, well, double congratulations. And I went, double congratulations? No, just one kid, not twins. And he goes, no, I'm sitting right now at the Boston Music Awards and you just took Best Singer National. I went, what did you say? He goes, you just won the Boston Music Award for Best Singer in Nationals. And
National Act, yeah.
And I went, are you fucking kidding me? So to answer your question, I did not send anything to him, but what I wanted to do was take that award, which is kind of three-dimensionally shaped like a pyramid, and shove it right up his ass.
Yeah. And that's, hey.
Awards don't mean anything, by the way, but it was nice to get that acknowledgement.
No, but, the thing is that, this guy is in a position where, he got you rethinking whether you're ever going to do this.
Yeah.
And luckily,
Yeah.
you grew up like how you grew up and had the fuck you mentality to it.
He had never heard of us, and he was grading us on the fact that when you looked at his office, he had his arm around everybody in the photo, and they were all famous people. He was one of these people who, he was the rock star about what he did, and he was bigger than, he was just a dick.
Yeah.
You're a dick.
Well, and that's the thing is, I'm sure somehow, some way, that's gotten back to him that or he's aware of.
So in 1986, I graduated from high school. When you're a senior, if you remember, you're not taken unless you're planning on going to some frickin' highfalutin university, which I was not planning on doing. I just get me the fuck out of here, So I'm taking like family planning and adventures in listening and like these classes that are just like whatever, right?
Yeah.
So adventures in listening turned out to be a hard class. It was taught by a guy named Wendell Purrington, who was an openly gay teacher. I'm only saying that because it's kind of intrinsic to the story.
Which in 1986.
Yeah, exactly.
Was a big to do.
It was a big to do, exactly. To-do. And he was very theatrical, and he was very flamboyant, and he was very. And I'm just, listen. It's okay. I got no problem. Al Barr's gay friendly. But at the time in 1986, it was unheard of. But this guy he was a jerk. He wasn't a nice guy at all. He was really, really mean. He was mean to the kids. There was this kid, Gary Shampoo, who was in the class. He had a bowl cut and really bad skin, and he's like this, you're scary. And he always made Gary read out loud because Gary couldn't read very well.
So just
he loved to just to fuck with him. And Gary he read the word him as hymen. And so, of course, Wendell just laughed his head. He was a jerk. But most of the kids in this class the Portsmouth High School Band was like one of the most awarded high school bands in the country. And he was involved in this band. And a lot of the kids in this class, Adventures in Listening, were band people. I'm being kind. And so it was me and my dearly departed friend Nathan Christie and this guy Juan, this Puerto Rican kid, and we were the only three kids who weren't like musically tied into this guy's life. We were just taking the class because we thought it was going to be an easy fucking credit. So one of the things that Wendell loved to do was assign projects where you would have to work with a song that you would then bring in, and you'd have to break down like the intro, the verse, the chorus, it just basically breaking down songs, learning about music theory. People would bring in songs like, for example, Lionel Richie's Dancing on the Ceiling, and Wendell loved to go behind the piano and, oh, what a feeling, oh, we're dancing on the ceiling. He just loved to be so of course, he loved to perform. He loved to perform, and he loved when people brought in stuff that he could play on his piano. So I brought in Corrosion of Conformity. That was my project.
Wait, was it Animosity?
It was Animosity.
Okay, perfect.
It was Animosity.
Best record ever.
Exactly. It was that song, paralyzed, alone, and frightened, laying low so you don't get saddened. Something out there wishes you death. I forget the name of the song, but I remember those lyrics. But anyway, so Wendell couldn't play that on the piano, so I was
no bueno, yeah.
No bueno. And then Nathan Christie, my friend who's left us, who I grew up with, he brought in Ace of Spades by Motorhead fucking, that was a no bueno. And then Juan brought in like some over sexual Prince song, you know what I mean? So the three of us were like, he did not like us at all.
Yeah, the outcast.
So just to give you an idea, okay, because I'm going somewhere with this. So this is like the beginning of class, and he goes, Nathan, Juan, Alex, I need to see you in my office. So we go in, and he closes the door. So realize that morning, Carl Fisher came into class in a leather jacket. Carl was one of the band guys. We were starting to bleed out. We were starting to expand our ranks within Adventures of Listening class. Wendell wasn't down with that, so he took the cancer and he brought us into his office, and he closes his door, and he had this like shade he like lowered, and he does this like Napoleonic kind of like hands behind the back, and he walks back and forth in front of the three of us. And he's just like
the consummate performer.
He's just like this. He goes, I don't like you guys. I don't like what you bring to my class. You're troublemakers. You are troublemakers, and I don't like you. I've got a deal for you.
This is like right out of an 80s movie.
This is 1986. Yeah. I got a deal for you. I don't care what the fuck you do while this class is going on, but I don't want you in it. So go find something to do that involves not being here. I'll mark you here, and I'm going to give you all D minuses. And I'm being very, very kind, by the way. Very generous. Deal? We're like, well, we just get to go fuck off for an hour? Okay, whatever. We get a D? All right, that's what we'll do. So we did. Deal was made, right? 3 years ago, so there's the Portsmouth Music Academy, PMAC, which I heartily support. Russ Grazier, who is an old classmate from Little Harbor, Portsmouth Little Harbor School, where the elementary school that I went to. We know each other. He got involved locally. He started the school with his wife, and it supports the music scene, in terms of learning, being in bands, songwriting, every aspect of it. It's a really cool thing for kids. And so he will tap me sometimes in terms of like coming and talking to. I always look at it as if I can talk to kids, it's not about who I am and what I do, but it's more about the fact that I work within the music industry, and that, when I was a kid and I wanted to be in a band, I never met anybody who was, and no one talked about it, and I had all these questions, and I wanted to. Sure. So I kind of, give myself over to those kind of situations. I'm happy to do that always, of course.
Resource.
So exactly, but it's just interesting to note that this guy, Wendell Purrington, teaches at this school. Now, I don't bear this guy any ill will, it's funny to talk about, but
it's high school.
It's high school, exactly. But I will point this out. Because this is, you said, I wonder if this guy's ever figured out. He actually on his Facebook said, well, guys, I just found out that my old student, Alex Barr, is famous and did all this stuff. And it just goes to show you. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
He's trying to take some credit.
He's claiming me?
Yeah.
This is the same guy that actually had me make a deal with him to leave his class because I was the guy making these kids break out in leather jackets. Yeah. Anyways.
That's awesome.
Anyways.
So I feel like at some point, if you do another Bruisers record or like a Dropkick record or something, Adventures in Listening.
Adventures in Listening. Maybe we should call it that. Yeah, it's a good title. That's right. Yeah. Oi. Adventures in Listening. I mean, and here's the thing is like I was in theater classes and stuff when I was a kid, and when I do that autistic voice and stuff, that's just me goofing. Yeah. And I have to give that caveat too, because my mother was a ballerina when I was growing up. So we had gay men who, in our house like all the time. Gay people being gay was nothing to me. You know what I mean? Like that was nothing. But the word fag was used so much when I was a kid that literally, and believe me, when that word was thrust upon me when I was a kid, I didn't even know what it was.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? I just got called that all the time. You know what I mean? So when the road ended, being able to use the word faggot, and again, I'm not trying to offend anybody by invoking that word, and I don't use that word in my vernacular anymore, but I will say this, and this is funny, you'll like this. So I'm in Berlin, Germany, And we finished the tour, and my friend David Strempel from Cortex Records is like, Al, can you do this thing for Troopers? They're playing the summer festival. I need you to do. His voice is very high like this, and he's a very good friend of mine. Love you, David. And he said, can you do this little promo for the Troopers? So the Troopers, if you know anything about Troopers, you know who the Troopers are?
Yeah.
Okay, do you know the singer? Like the singer, like this guy is literally like, nobody wants to fuck with this guy. Like cops don't fuck with this guy. He's fucking scary. He's a fucking scary motherfucker, okay? He makes David be the drummer, actually. He's like, I don't even want to do it. What am I going to say? No, I can't say no. And
I didn't know, like, I know of him, but I don't know that history. I didn't know that he forced him to be in the band.
He's a badass dude. He's a badass dude. I mean, David, when you said forced him, but he's like, I don't want to practice. It's not like I have an option. I have to go.
Yeah.
So David wants me to do this promo for the Troopers, and like, I'm a fucking 80s kid here, right? So I just literally look in the camera, I go, don't be a faggot, go to the show, go see Troopers.
Yeah.
I don't think anything of it, right? So he posts that, I get on a plane, land, and literally
all hell's broken loose.
All hell has broken loose. The AP, Alternative Press, has gone online. Lead singer of Dropkick Murphys, homophobic slur. I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? I gotta talk about the lineage of that word in my life. I mean, when I grew up, we played Smear the Queer. This has nothing to do with homophobia. Got nothing against gay people. But all of a sudden, I'm being touted as like the Hitler of. I'm like, what is going on here? When my phone fucking rings, you know who's on the phone? Kevin Chabonnier. Chabo.
Yeah.
He goes, I just want you to know, you got people so upset that the gay community in Boston is picketing McGreevy's tonight. I go, oh my God. He was like, you really messed up, man. You messed up big time. He goes, you want to know something else? I'm like, what? He goes, I just made that up.
Yeah. I knew that where that was going, but knowing Chavo, but
I miss you, Chavo.
Yeah. But dude, I mean, I know it's weird. Language evolves, and I mean, those words got thrown around like nothing when we were kids, and it never.
And I understand why we don't use it anymore,
Absolutely.
and I don't anymore. And the last thing I want to do is alienate or hurt anybody who has been alienated and hurt. I ain't, and I'm not a guy to jump in a boot party. Fuck that shit.
But there was always like before he had his issues, Louis C.K. had a really good comedy bit on that. But it just reminded me, there was like a Family Guy episode where like Brian, the dog, tweets something like fucked up and then goes to a movie. And in that time, it went viral and fucked up. So that's like what happened with you on that flight.
It's literally, it was crazy. And it was like, so then the manager who has just started at the time working for us, he's like, listen, man, we got to do damage control. You need to write something for the Facebook. And I'm like, fine, but I want to discuss the lineage of that word, smear the queer, retard, blah, 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 blah. They're like, you know what they said? They go, we'll write it.
We'll write it. Yeah. You just co-sign it. Yeah.
Co-sign it.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I don't know
if that was to the Northeast, but if anyone doesn't know what Smear the Queer was, it was just basically like football, but there was no rules.
Yeah.
And it was
no ball.
And it was the most nonsensical game because it was like, well, how we played it, there was a ball.
Okay, we didn't have the ball was the guy. The ball was basically. The way we played it was basically.
So I want to hear the New Hampshire rules.
Okay,
I'll get into the Massachusetts.
So the New Hampshire rules were this. Yeah, the New Hampshire rules were this. You took whoever drew the shortest straw, they would start in the middle, and you would just run like crazy, and you'd have to tackle somebody, and then those two became the blob, and it would come down to the one last Smear the Queer.
Yeah.
And so if you were, crazy enough and fast enough, you ended up being the queer.
Yeah.
And it was actually a proud moment when you were the queer.
So this was the same thing.
We had a band called The Queers.
Yeah, New Hampshire.
And they had a song called Fagtown Sucks.
Yeah. So in Massachusetts rules, we had a ball. It was just that everyone fought for the ball. Whoever had the ball had to defend himself against everybody.
Oh yeah, okay.
And
so it's kind of like
but it's it's anti logical because like you're fighting for the ball so that you have to fight everybody.
Right.
But that's the kind of dumb shit we used to do.
Yeah.
Right? And that's why when we get told you can't sing anymore, we go, nah, fuck you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm fighting for the ball so that I can fight everybody.
Exactly. And that's punk rock. And that's punk rock. You know what I mean? And I mean, yeah, I mean, and it's so funny because you can go back to school and see who the sheeple people became and the people that stood their own ground. And, it's so funny, and there were many of us, there weren't many of us.
No, not then.
And there aren't, and to me today, there aren't, I'm going to have to fucking take a urination break again because I'm old and my bladder's old, but I'll leave it with this. I think if we don't stick together and if we let what's happening with this pandemic and politics, it's going to ruin punk rock. And it already has to some degree because as you so importantly pointed out in the text last night, punk was never meant to be partisan.
No.
Ever. And that is the biggest mistake that I think is being made right now with all these politics is trying to say, as Johnny so eloquently put it, that shit sandwich tastes less bad than that shit sandwich, so I'm going to eat that shit sandwich. How about we don't eat any shit sandwiches? How about fuck you shit sandwiches?
Yeah, fuck you shit sandwich.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
That's
there's these people, there's these people that are sitting there going, no, you better eat that other shit sandwich because fuck you.
Yeah, I'm eating this shit sandwich because at least it isn't that shit sandwich.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like lesser two evils. Are you crazy? Lesser two evils.
My favorite one is, if you're gonna eat that shit sandwich, then unfollow me now because I'm eating this shit sandwich.
Yeah, like yeah, and then it's I just don't understand this thing, and that's how literally like the slap across the face now is the unfollow. It's like,
that's what I mean.
It's like well, I am unfollowing you.
Good. Well, I mean, I think that's the important note to end it with. Like, it's always been us against them, and it's not.
Yes.
Like, and us against them isn't punk rock versus the world, but it is. But it's also us against those that would want to oppress us. On whatever level that is, like whether it's like punk rock versus mainstream, or whether it's all of us as U.S. citizens versus an oppressive government, or whatever it is, or like oppressive corporations, or whoever is trying to do that. And your neighbor's not your enemy. You know what I mean?
Think for yourself. Don't rely on no one else.
Your neighbor's not your enemy unless they're willing to knock you out for having your fucking uncle and 3 cousins over for a family fucking function. Yeah. But we'll end it there, man. I know you got to run.
Truth. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you, man. Thank you for coming. Thanks again to McPherson. Did I say that right? Or is it McPherson? McPherson Firearms in New Hampshire. Check them out in the Gun Shop Guys podcast. We're coming at you live from your studio.
Go see Vinny Gun and the McPherson Firearms Gun Shop. It's right down the street from the SIG Academy. You can go to the corporate place or you can go to a real gun shop.
Absolutely. And any plugs or anything or websites or anything?
I got plugs coming in about 3 months and they're costing a lot of money, but they are fancy and I'm going to look like John Travolta.
He's not going to be forced into skin retirement.
That's right.
All right. And, check out Dropkick Murphys and Bruisers. Bruisers doing one more show in Europe sometime at undisclosed point and undisclosed location.
That's right.
Just when shit's back open.
We're not going to tell anybody so no one's there. It's going to be great.
But you're going to be able to say, hey, we played Europe.
It's your
fault. It's your fault if you weren't there. And don't miss it because I saw you guys do that Bruisers shit at the TNT Fest a few years back and it was fucking phenomenal show. So
Thank you.
Don't miss that. All right.